something that appeared quietly in our own cosmic neighborhood, a visitor from the deep dark between the stars, the third known interstellar object ever found passing through our solar system. It's called 3I Atlas. Tonight, we're going to follow it gently as it drifts through the light of our sun and the silence of interstellar space. Because this isn't just a story about a rock on a long road trip. It's a story about where it came from, what it might be, and why it matters that it came at all. Imagine this. You're standing under a night sky so clear it almost hums. A tiny moving spark crosses the stars, too fast for a comet, too steep for an asteroid. For a brief moment, it catches sunlight, a visitor from another system, brushing by our own, before slipping away forever. The air is still. The earth turns quietly beneath your feet. That's all most of us will ever see of 3I Atlas, a point of light, a line of data, and 100 questions whispering behind it. It's strange to think that something could travel for millions of years across unimaginable distances, only to spend a few weeks inside the reach of our telescopes. Stranger still that it might have once circled another star, perhaps even brushed against another world. Its journey makes our own feel very small, but also connected. We are, after all, built from the same dust. Maybe you're listening to this late at night, a cup cooling beside you, or maybe you've already turned out the lights, letting the sound of this story settle in around you. If so, leave a quiet comment. Tell me what time it is, where you are, and what the sky looks like tonight. Funny, isn't it? We're speaking about something that traveled between suns, yet somehow it's brought us together in this single small moment. So go ahead, dim the lights, adjust your pillow, and let your thoughts slow down to the speed of starlight. Because before we can follow 3I Atlas on its journey through our solar system, we have to understand what it means for something to come from out there. From the cold between the stars, from the cosmic ocean that rarely sends gifts. And so, before we find out what 3I Atlas might tell us, we need to step back to where it began, out in the interstellar dark, where the story of every wandering object, including ours, truly starts. It began with a streak of light that didn't behave. Astronomers at the Atlas Observatory in Hawaii noticed it first. A faint object moving faster than anything bound to the Sunday. Its orbit was wrong. Too steep, too fast, too free. It wasn't from here. It was 3I Atlas, the third confirmed visitor from another star system. Let's begin there, with that small, defiant glimmer slipping through the telescope's gaze. You can almost picture it. The soft hum of the observatory dome, turning against the dark, the faint scent of warm metal and chilled air, and inside, a few sleepy astronomers staring at pixels that don't fit. One dot, just a few magnitudes too bright, moving a little too quick, like a child sneaking out of bed while the universe isn't looking. Now, imagine standing beneath that same sky. The air is cool, laced with salt from the Pacific. Somewhere above, that strange traveler cuts silently through the void. No sound, no trail, just motion written in light. You tilt your head back, blink, and miss it completely. The universe does that sometimes, drops by unannounced, stays for coffee, and vanishes forever. Light bends, night pretends, and silence never ends. They named it 3I Atlas, not a poetic name, but functional, like labeling a star. Guest number 3. You can almost hear the faint bureaucratic sigh behind it. Another interstellar visitor, file under cosmic surprises. Still, the name has weight. Atlas, the one who held up the sky, now holding up data on something that slipped through it. A fitting symmetry, don't you think? And you're standing on a small planet, orbiting an ordinary star, watching something ancient and foreign move through your neighborhood. The object is a speck, but in that speck is an entire alien history, the dust of a different dawn. Maybe it once circled a red sun with rings of icy light, or passed by planets that no longer exist. You'll never know, and that's the point. Some mysteries are lullabies better felt than solved. Stars awake, shadows shake, horizons start to break. What strikes you most is the silence. There's no roar of engines, no cinematic hum, just photons bouncing off frozen rock, traveling for millions of years before finding a telescope in Hawaii. Imagine drifting with it, the cold pressing into your bones, the sunlight too weak to warm you. The stars don't twinkle here. They're hard and steady, like jewels left out overnight. Every direction looks the same. Every direction is the same. Cold and deep, the cosmos keeps. What memory dares to sleep? And then, humor creeps in. You realize this entire chase, millions of dollars of telescopes, scientists sipping energy drinks at 2 a.m., is all for a glorified space pebble. Somewhere out there, 3i Atlas is probably laughing. If space rocks had personalities, this one would be the hitchhiker that overshot its exit by a few light years. Still, there's awe. You think about how far it's come, longer than life has existed here, longer than continents have drifted. It's wandered through radiation storms, stellar winds, maybe even the gravitational pull of dying suns. And yet, here it is, crossing paths with a world that decided to invent telescopes. You, watching it. Back, stone in flight, born of night, ghostly spark of endless light. The scientists run their models. The orbit screams interstellar. The speed, about 60 kilometers per second, says it's not ours. The angle of approach hints it came from the direction of Serpens, though no one can be sure. Serpens the snake. How fitting for something that slithered between stars, shedding systems like old skin. You wonder if anyone else is watching from somewhere else, a distant world, looking up and whispering about a visitor from us. Maybe we're the interstellar debris in someone else's sky. Maybe this is just how the galaxy says hello, quietly through flying stones. Worlds collide, truths divide, comets drift, where gods once lied. As telescopes follow its path, you picture the data coming in a river of numbers, each one a fragment of its story. Brightness curves, temperature readings, subtle hints of carbon and ice. Every pixel says, I came from somewhere you'll never see. Every bit of data hums with the soundless patience of deep time. There's something strangely comforting in that the universe keeps moving whether you notice or not, that even across the endless dark, things still visit. You imagine 3i Atlas gliding through sunlight, tail faintly glowing, whispering to the planets as it passes. Don't worry, I won't stay long. Fire fades, night parades, starlight hums through endless shades. A quiet thought settles in. Maybe it isn't just a rock. Maybe it's a messenger, carrying dust from another system, a seed of someone else's creation story. Or maybe it's nothing but frozen chemistry, passing without purpose, which somehow feels even more beautiful. You think about your own orbit, the routines, the gravity of everyday things, the way even a small object can break free if it's fast enough. 3i Atlas did what we dream of. It left home, drifted between stars, and didn't burn up on the way. Dreams take flight through cosmic night, where wonder burns just out of sight. It will soon leave again out towards Sculptor, the constellation that names its exit, and there it will vanish, maybe to be found again in another sky, by another set of watchers wondering the same thing. What was that? You smile, knowing you've just witnessed a blink in eternity. The visitor between stars, here and gone. Dust to flame, no name, yet the universe remembers just the same. At first, it looked like any other faint asteroid, but its trajectory told another story. Instead of looping gently around the sun, it cut through the solar system at an impossible angle, traveling at nearly 60 kilometers per second. That's the cosmic equivalent of someone jogging through your living room, waving politely, and vanishing through the opposite wall. Let's talk about what it takes to notice something that doesn't belong. You're an astronomer in the middle of another routine night shift. The coffee's gone lukewarm, the telescope hums like a tired refrigerator, and the only light is the pale blue of a monitor showing endless dots. Most of them are predictable, obedient little specks orbiting the sun, following the same slow, elegant dance that's been going on for billions of years. But then, there's this one, the rebel pixel. You blink, you recheck your data. Its position has shifted far more than it should. The math doesn't lie. It's moving at a velocity that laughs at the sun's gravity. It isn't circling, it's slicing straight through. If the solar system were a polite dinner party, this object has just kicked the door open, grabbed a breadstick, and walked out the back without saying goodbye. You might not think numbers can feel dramatic, but they can. 60 kilometers per second faster than the fastest space probe humanity has ever built. That's not wandering asteroid speed. That's I have places to be speed. In human terms, imagine something moving so fast that by the time you said interstellar object, it would already be halfway to Jupiter. This is where the fun begins. The verification. Science, after all, is cautious. You can't just announce alien rock and go viral. You have to prove it. So, the astronomers check again. Position, brightness, motion. They phone colleagues across time zones. Observatories in Chile, Spain, and Arizona turn their eyes to the same patch of sky. And sure enough, the story holds. The object isn't orbiting anything here. Its path is hyperbolic, meaning it will never come back. If the universe has a lost and found, 3i Atlas just skipped it entirely. Now, imagine what that looks like from above. Picture the solar system as a swirling map of ellipses, each planet looping around the sun like threads on a spool. Comets from the Oort cloud swing in long arcs. Asteroids tumble in slow circles. Everything neat and gravitationally tidy. And then zip. A streak cuts across every line like someone drew it with a ruler and didn't care about the curves. That's how you know. That's how you tell what's ours and what's just passing through. If you were standing on Pluto, which is a terrible idea, by the way, you might have seen it flash by faintly, a pinprick of light skimming the deep sky. No cometary fanfare, no grand tale sweeping behind it. Just a traveler keeping to its business. Back on Earth, the astronomers give it a label, 3i Atlas, a name as cold and procedural as the data itself. And yet, behind that string of letters and numbers is a profound implication. We just caught something that isn't from our solar system at all. You, sitting there in your warm room, just became an accidental witness to a fragment of another star's story. You start to wonder what system flung it away. Was there once a planet it brushed past, perhaps with blue skies of its own? Did it begin in the cradle of a young, bright star, only to be hurled out by a gravitational accident, the cosmic equivalent of a missed handshake? And if so, how many others are out there, sailing silently between suns, never noticed, never named? If comets are postcards from the early solar system, then interstellar objects are entire novels from foreign libraries. And here's one, tossed onto our doorstep. Scientists, bless them, immediately start dissecting the plot. They compare its trajectory to known stars, trying to trace its origin. Could it have come from the region around Vega? Or maybe it's older, still flung loose before humanity's ancestors even learned to walk upright. There's a strange intimacy to it. You, a single person on a spinning rock, are watching something born light years away. It's like finding a seashell on a mountain and realizing the ocean once reached this high. Everything in the universe leaves evidence if you know how to look. Of course, there's the funny side too. The human urge to make meaning from motion kicks in instantly. Online forums light up. What if it's a probe? Could it be aliens checking on us after Oumuamua? Asterisk. Meanwhile, actual astronomers roll their eyes and sip their tea. Still, a part of them probably wonders too, because what's science if not structured curiosity? In the end, the verdict is clear. 3. Atlas doesn't belong. It isn't trapped in the sun's gravity well. It's a visitor, not a resident. It came from elsewhere. It will return to elsewhere. And we caught it only because we happened to look up at the right time. And that's the thing about recognition. You only notice the strange when you know what normal looks like. For centuries, astronomers studied orbits so deeply that when something defied the pattern, they saw it instantly. It's a reminder that sometimes discovery is less about searching and more about noticing what doesn't fit. So next time you look at the night sky, remember, most of what you see belongs to our local family planets, moons, the quiet drift of comets. But every so often, a stranger will pass by. No invitation, no warning, just a faint light whispering across the dark, reminding you that even space has its wanderers. And by the time you blink, it's already gone. The name isn't poetry, it's paperwork. 3I stands for the third interstellar object ever found after Oumuamua and Comet Borisov. Atlas is the telescope survey that first spotted it. But like all travelers, it carries a story behind its name, a map of where it's been and a whisper of where it's going. Let's pause there for a moment because names, even bureaucratic ones, have a strange power. You sit at your desk, the nightlight soft, maybe a cat or a half-finished cup of tea nearby, and you mouth the words, 3I Atlas. It sounds almost mythic. A creature with 3 eyes that can see across the galaxy. In reality, it's an entry in a database line, 42 inches, an observing log somewhere on a Hawaiian server. But between those syllables, something bigger hums. The tension between how humans name things and how the universe doesn't care what we call them. When scientists wrote 3I divided by Atlas in their notes, they weren't thinking of legend. They were following procedure. 1 Roman numeral, 1 acronym, 1 colon of cosmic bookkeeping. Yet this small act, this line of text, turns raw light into a story. Without that name, it's just photons on a sensor. With it, it's a visitor, a guest, a thing with an identity you can talk to, even if it never talks back. You imagine the first astronomer typing it into the system. Maybe they paused for a second, looked at the blinking cursor, and smiled. Maybe they knew that somewhere, someone would read that name and feel the same quiet shiver you're feeling now, the one that says, something from another star just brushed ours. Of course, the humor of it all is that science is wonderfully boring in its precision. 3I literally means the third of its kind. If this were mythology, it'd be called the Wanderer of the Serpent Sky or the Sleeper Between Suns. But astrophysicists have bills to file and grants to justify, so 3I it is. And somehow, that plainness makes it more beautiful, like the quiet handwriting on an envelope from far away. There's a rhythm in these designations. 1I, Oumuamua, the first. 2I divided by Borisov, the second. 3I divided by Atlas, the third. Each one a bookmark in humanity's growing understanding that our solar system isn't sealed off. We live in a cosmic crossroads, and these are the travelers who happen to take the scenic route through our yard. You start to see the pattern. Every number, every slash, every acronym is an admission that we are counting visits now. Imagine if Earth kept a guest book, tucked somewhere in the asteroid belt. It would read like 1I, the scout, 2I, the drifter, 3I, the witness, each signature in dust, each one arriving uninvited, each one leaving before we can even pour coffee. The Atlas part carries its own quiet weight. It's the name of the telescope network that scans the sky for dangerous asteroids, a planetary defense system built to protect us from cosmic accidents. And yet, here it is, discovering not doom, but wonder. Atlas, the watcher who holds up the heavens, seeing a stranger stroll by. The irony is delicious. You build a surveillance system for space rocks, and space responds by sending you a mystery. If you close your eyes, you can almost feel the scale of it. The giant domes of the observatories breathing in the night air, the scent of warm electronics mixing with mountain wind. Inside, monitors flicker with rows of data, and someone whispers, "There it is again." Somewhere in that hum of technology and fatigue, a human heart speeds up because they've just named something that has never been named before. Names are strange things. They're how you make the infinite manageable. You label the stars, chart their courses, pretend that by categorizing them, you understand them. It's comforting, like drawing a map on a foggy window. 2, 3I divided by Atlas becomes a kind of spell, a way of pinning motion to meaning. But even as you say it, you know the name will outlive you. Long after the telescopes rust and the observatories close, someone, somewhere, will find the record. The entry will read, 3I divided by Atlas interstellar object, observed 2024. No footnote about the sleepless scientists or the quiet awe, just coordinates and numbers. The universe reduced to tidy rows, like stars lined up for roll call. Still, the poetry sneaks in. Atlas, the mythic titan, was punished to carry the sky. The telescope network named after him now shoulders the same burden, holding up the vault of space, scanning endlessly for meaning. When it found 3I, it wasn't just detecting light, it was, in a sense, lifting the weight of not knowing, if only for a moment. Think about how human that is. To give a number to a miracle, to file infinity under miscellaneous, to find comfort in a catalogue. We are small, fragile, and terrified of forgetting. So we build archives, we name visitors, we make the universe bureaucratically beautiful. Somewhere out there, 3I Atlas continues on, carrying that name like a sticker on an old suitcase. It doesn't know what it means. It doesn't know it's been labeled, logged, and whispered about in podcasts and classrooms. It just keeps moving, unbothered, a line of light stretching out toward another Sunday. But every time you hear that name, you feel a tug, the recognition that we, too, are travelers catalogued by time. Each of us gets a designation, a set of coordinates, a story attached to a sequence. Maybe that's the quiet joke of the cosmos. Everything is paperwork, even wonder. And as 3I Atlas drifts onward, the name remains simple, exact, and impossibly human. A record of the night we looked up and decided that even a speck from another world deserved a place in our files. and in our imagination. Before 3I Atlas, there was Oumuamua, the first interstellar interloper, discovered in 2017. Its cigar shape and strange acceleration stirred 1,000 theories. Compared to that, 3I Atlas is quieter, more Comet than Mystery Box, yet it carries the same reminder. We are not alone in the debris of the galaxy. Let's step back for a moment and remember that first encounter, the one that startled the entire astronomical community awake. Picture yourself in 2017, headlines shouting, "First object from another star detected." The internet buzzing with questions that veered from poetic to paranoid. Oumuamua arrived without fanfare, a flicker of reflected light tumbling across the sky, small enough to miss, but strange enough to haunt. It wasn't just another rock. It was a message that the galaxy occasionally drops crumbs, and we'd just found one. Oumuamua, a Hawaiian word meaning scout or messenger from afar, a perfect name for something that behaved as though it had somewhere to be. It spun erratically, tumbled unpredictably, and glided through sunlight with a speed that made astronomers squint. Theories sprouted like mushrooms after rain. Was it a fragment of a shattered world? An alien probe disguised as a rock? A pancake-shaped solar sail? Scientists politely said, probably not, but none of them sounded entirely sure. You imagine watching it through a telescope, that faint glint, moving faster than comprehension. The thought sneaks in. Something from another system is right there, right now, passing through ours. Not light from a distant galaxy, not the echo of an ancient explosion, but a thing, a tangible traveler sharing the same sunlight as you. For a brief moment, the human sense of isolation cracked open. Compared to that drama, 3I Atlas feels like the calm younger sibling, less cinematic, more subtle. No sudden acceleration, no bizarre shape to trigger science fiction headlines. Just a gentle, steady arc, a comet-like visitor that doesn't need to perform to earn attention. It's the difference between a guest who bursts into your house shouting and one who quietly leaves a note on your doorstep. Still, you can't help but think of them together. Oumuamua, the pioneer. Borisov, the second traveler, more familiar, a true comet with a glowing tail. And now 3I Atlas, the third. 3 dots on the same cosmic line, like punctuation in a sentence the galaxy is writing across space. You can almost hear it whisper, "You are not the only ones drifting." It's humbling, isn't it, to realize that the empty stretches between stars aren't empty at all. They're filled with the lost, the thrown, the forgotten fragments of planets, shards of comets, the cold leftovers of creation. Every now and then, one of those pieces finds its way to our door. The universe, it turns out, is messy, and we are sweeping up its cosmic crumbs. When Oumuamua left, it left behind something subtle but lasting: permission to imagine. Scientists who once laughed at the idea of interstellar visitors began designing instruments to catch the next one. It changed how we looked at the night sky. Suddenly, every faint streak of light felt like a potential messenger. Astronomers began to scan, not just for threats, but for stories. You might find this funny: humanity, a species that once named constellations after lions and hunters, now naming alien rocks after Hawaiian poetry and database codes. But both acts come from the same impulse: to connect, to look at something cold and lifeless, and still see meaning. There's something profoundly human about giving personality to space debris. You imagine Oumuamua as the eccentric uncle, spinning wildly through the family reunion of the solar system, and 3I Atlas as the quiet cousin, polite, curious, gliding through unnoticed. If they could talk, maybe Oumuamua would say, "You'll never believe what I've seen." And Three-Eye Atlas would just smile and keep moving. You think about how brief these encounters are. Oumuamua zipped through in a matter of weeks. By the time telescopes pointed its way, it was already leaving. Three-Eye Atlas did the same. A short visit, a faint trail, a goodbye that arrived before the hello was over. It's like the universe keeps sending postcards that say, "Wish you were here," but they arrive centuries too late. And yet, the impact isn't measured in time, but in perspective. Oumuamua reminded us that the cosmos isn't static. Things move, collide, scatter, and sometimes they find their way into our story. Three-Eye Atlas is part of that same unfolding tale. Each visitor adds a brushstroke to the quiet realization that we're living inside a living galaxy, dynamic, restless, and filled with travelers we may never meet. You can almost picture them, far beyond the heliopause now. Oumuamua, Borisov, and Three-Eye Atlas drifting through the interstellar dark like old sailors comparing notes. Maybe they pass each other, invisible and indifferent. Maybe their frozen surfaces still carry traces of starlight from the systems they left behind. If you could listen closely, maybe you'd hear the faint scrape of cosmic dust as they pass, like strangers brushing shoulders in an infinite station. So tonight, as you lie back and let your thoughts wander, remember this: we have neighbors we'll never see again. They don't knock, they don't stay, but they remind us we're part of something vast and shared. Oumuamua was the first hello. Three-Eye Atlas, the second wave of the same quiet greeting. Because every so often, the galaxy glances our way, and when it does, it throws a pebble across the dark, just to see if we're still paying attention. You could say the Atlas team has one of the strangest jobs on Earth, staying awake for visitors that may never come again. Night after night, their telescopes sweep the heavens, catching the faint motions of objects older than our planet. It's quiet work, but when something like Three-Eye Atlas appears, the quiet suddenly feels full of meaning. Let's step into their world for a moment. The summit of Haleakala in Hawaii is a strange kind of silence, not empty, but layered. The wind hums like an old instrument. The air smells faintly of dust and ozone, and the night sky is so clear it almost feels like standing beneath glass. Up here, sleep is a negotiable concept. You nap in intervals, like a cat guarding eternity. The Atlas telescopes unblinking. Mechanical eyes scan the dome of stars every few seconds. Their cameras record everything that moves, from weather satellites to lost bolts from old rockets. The data piles up in petabytes, most of it dull. But then, once in a great while, something breaks the pattern. A pixel moves too fast, a line curves wrong, and someone's heartbeat quickens at 2 to 17 a.m. That's the magic of their job monotony interrupted by miracle. You can imagine one of the astronomers leaning closer to the screen, the light reflecting in their glasses. "Wait," they whisper. "That shouldn't be there." It's not the exclamation of discovery movies love to dramatize. It's quieter, reverent, even, because they know they've just seen something that hasn't been seen before. And here's the funny part. While most people are asleep, dreaming about missed emails or forgotten groceries, these watchers are out there catching the universe in the act. Their circadian rhythms are chaos. Their diets are 40% instant noodles and 60% caffeine. They're the kind of people who find beauty in data logs and poetry and pixel drift. Imagine the glow of the control room, the whirring fans, the click of keyboards, the faint squeak of chairs. Outside, the telescope dome turns like a giant eye tracking the stars. Inside, A group of humans fight yawns to monitor a machine that never sleeps. There's something sacred about that. The cooperation between human patience and mechanical persistence. When 3I Atlas appeared, it wasn't with a bang but a blip. The telescopes caught it almost by accident. One of the astronomers described it as a polite little anomaly, like a whisper in a room that had always been silent. The coordinates were sent to other observatories, and suddenly, across the world, telescopes turned in unison, a global game of cosmic telephone. You can picture the excitement, contained but electric. Emails pinging between Chile and Spain, data sheets updating in real time. The watchers of the sky had caught something rare, a rock from another system just strolling through our own. They didn't shout or pop champagne. Instead, they did what scientists do best. They stared. They measured. They whispered to each other about velocity and inclination. It's humbling, this kind of work. You spend years looking at things that never change. Stars rise and set. Planets loop predictably. The sky, from a human perspective, is eternal repetition. And yet, that repetition is what allows you to spot the exception, to see the visitor, to recognize that tiny difference that says, this one doesn't belong. Think of it like this. If the solar system is a calm pond, astronomers are the ones sitting on the dock, watching for ripples. Most nights, nothing stirs. Then one evening, something skips across the surface, and they catch it, just before it disappears. You can almost hear them whisper, "Got you." There's humor in the patience required. Imagine explaining to a friend what you do for a living. So you stare at stars all night? Yes. And they move? Not much. And when they do, well, sometimes it means an asteroid could end civilization. Oh, and sometimes it's just a rock from another solar system saying hi. The watchers smile at that they've learned not to expect fireworks. The joy isn't in the spectacle, it's in the noticing. In being awake at the exact moment the universe decides to do something interesting. And maybe that's a lesson for the rest of us too. You don't always need to be changing the world. Sometimes you just need to be paying attention when the world changes on its own. When dawn breaks over the mountain, the Atlas team steps outside. The horizon glows gold, and clouds roll below their feet like slow tides. They stretch, squinting into the light, and for a moment, the exhaustion fades. The sky they've been staring at all night shifts from mystery to morning. Somewhere up there, 3I Atlas continues its silent path, already slipping beyond their reach. But they caught it, they witnessed it, and that's enough. Because in the end, the watchers of the sky don't chase fame or fortune. They chase wonder, the kind that arrives without warning, travels faster than dreams, and disappears before most of us wake up. Every interstellar object carries atoms forged in stars long gone. Iron from one sun, carbon from another, perhaps even dust from supernovae. In a way, 3I Atlas is a courier, connecting the deaths of old stars to the birth of new ones, a quiet part of the galaxy's endless recycling program. You could call it the universe's most patient mail carrier. It doesn't hurry, doesn't complain about distance or delay. Its cargo isn't letters or packages, but atoms, tiny souvenirs from the explosions that made everything. When 3I Atlas glides through the solar system, it's not just passing by, it's delivering a story written in starlight, stamped with supernova dust, addressed to anyone curious enough to read it. Let's take a step back, far back, to where those atoms began. Imagine a star, massive and brilliant, burning through its fuel with the arrogance of youth. For millions of years, it shines, fusing hydrogen into helium, then heavier and heavier elements as it ages. Eventually, gravity wins. The core collapses, the outer layers explode, and in that brief, violent moment, the star becomes a factory of everything: iron, carbon, oxygen, gold, the raw materials of planets, of comets, of you. Now picture the aftermath: a cloud of debris expanding outward, billions of miles wide, swirling and cooling. Somewhere within that chaos, those atoms stick together, forming grains of dust, chunks of rock, and eventually fragments like 3I Atlas. They drift for eons, unbothered by time, until gravity calls them into new homes. The galaxy, in its infinite patience, recycles its own remains. Every atom in 3I Atlas has already lived several lives. The oxygen may have once been part of a water molecule on a planet that no longer exists. The carbon could have danced in the atmosphere of another sun's world. The iron might have come from the heart of a supernova that briefly outshone an entire galaxy. All those histories condensed into one small, frozen traveler. And here it is, slipping through our system like a cosmic courier between generations of stars. If you listen closely, not with ears, but with imagination, you can almost hear it whisper, "I've seen things you wouldn't believe." There's something deeply comforting about that, isn't there? The realization that nothing in the universe is wasted. Stars die, their ashes scatter, and those ashes become the seeds of new worlds. 3I Atlas is one of those seeds, flung across space to remind us that endings and beginnings are the same story, just told at different speeds. You might think of it as galactic composting, the great cycle of matter. The universe takes its leftovers, mixes them in the vastness of interstellar space, and eventually, out comes life. It's efficient, poetic, and very, very slow. Scientists can see traces of this history in the comet's chemistry. The isotopes of its elements carry signatures, tiny variations that act like birth certificates, revealing where they were forged. When researchers compare these ratios to those found in Earth's own rocks, they can tell which atoms in our bodies share ancestry with those in 3I Atlas. Spoiler, a lot of them do. That means, in a literal sense, we're related. You, sitting here, breathing air and thinking about comets, share iron with an interstellar traveler older than our solar system. We are cousins in chemistry, siblings in stardust, and when 3I Atlas leaves, it carries some of that same heritage onward, the ingredients of life looping endlessly from one system to the next. If that sounds too romantic, don't worry, nature's sense of humor is intact. This recycling program isn't elegant, it's messy. Stars explode, planets collide, comets vaporize. The universe recycles through chaos, but somehow, out of that chaos, order keeps emerging. Structure, beauty, meaning. It's as if the cosmos is both artist and janitor, endlessly creating and cleaning up after itself. You might imagine 3I Atlas passing through space with a quiet sense of purpose, though it has none. It doesn't know it's part of something larger. It just moves, indifferent but consistent, carrying atoms that once burned in ancient suns and will one day burn again. It is the embodiment of continuity, the material proof that nothing truly ends. It only changes owners, and that's what makes it profound. We look at 3I Atlas and see a comet, but the universe looks at it and sees circulation, the heartbeat of existence itself. We are all made of borrowed matter, living on borrowed time, in a system of infinite exchange. So, the next time you look at the night sky, remember this: the light you see is the same light that forged the atoms in your bones, the same light that shaped 3I Atlas's frozen heart. The courier continues its route. The message is still being delivered. And somewhere, another star is already preparing the next package. Because in the end, nothing in the galaxy ever truly belongs to one place. Not stars, not worlds, not even us. We are all participants in the same cosmic economy, givers, takers, travelers, and messengers, passing the same ancient dust between one sunrise and the next. Imagine the silence between stars, no sunlight, no warmth, only blackness stretching for trillions of kilometers. 3I Atlas drifted through that void for perhaps tens of millions of years. In that time, civilizations rose and fell, species evolved, stars were born and died, and still, it traveled on, asleep in the dark. Let's linger there for a moment in that impossible quiet. Not the kind of silence you get in a library or an empty room, but the kind that has never known a single sound. Out here, there's no air to carry vibration, no echo to comfort you. The only hum is the one inside your own head. The stars around you are so far apart that their light doesn't twinkle. It simply hangs, patient and ancient, like lanterns that forgot they were ever lit. Now imagine being 3I Atlas not alive, but enduring, frozen so deeply that even the atoms within you move slower than thought. A chunk of rock and ice, tumbling endlessly, unbothered by time. No sunrise, no sunset, just one eternal night. It's both terrifying and strangely peaceful, like the universe itself is meditating. You can picture it passing through the interstellar medium, brushing against clouds of dust so thin they'd make air look solid. Each grain it meets leaves a faint mark, like fingerprints from passing ghosts. Radiation from distant stars paints its surface over eons, bleaching it into subtle shades of grey and red. If you could hold it in your hands, assuming your hands were immortal and very, very heat-resistant, you'd see 1,000,000 years of stories etched into a single pebble. Back on Earth, we measure time in heartbeats and headlines, but 3I Atlas measures time in galactic rotations. When it left its home system, Earth didn't exist yet. When the first forests grew, it was still gliding through emptiness. When humans discovered fire, it was 1,000 light years away, minding its own business. Compared to that, our history feels like a flicker, a brief spark in the great dark. And yet, there's something comforting about knowing it's been out there all along. It reminds you that the cosmos doesn't hurry. It has no deadlines, no late-night anxiety about emails. It just drifts, breathes, expands. While we rush through years, the universe takes its time, and somehow, that slowness feels like wisdom. Picture this: 3I Atlas crossing the arm of the Milky Way. Behind it, a river of starlight spills through space like spilled milk. Ahead, clouds of gas and dust swirl lazily, glowing pink and gold where new suns are forming. It passes by without stopping, a silent observer to everything. The galaxy turns, stars burn out, and still, it goes the same object, the same motion, unchanged by the chaos around it. There's humor hidden in that image too. While we argue about traffic and time zones, this little traveler has been floating through the void for eons, probably thinking, you people really stress over nothing. If comets had personalities, 3I Atlas would be the cosmic equivalent of that calm friend who never gets flustered, even when the world's on fire. Every so often, it passes near a star, just close enough for warmth to kiss its frozen skin. A brief shimmer of energy, a whisper of life returning. Ice cracks, vapor escapes, and for a fleeting moment, it glows. Then it drifts on again, cooling, darkening, falling back into sleep, like a heartbeat that lasts 1,000,000 years between pulses. And while it sleeps, everything else changes. Galaxies merge, moons form, entire species rise, build, vanish. But for 3i Atlas, none of it matters. Its mission is patience. Its story is endurance. The universe may forget most things, but not the ones that simply keep going. You might think this sounds lonely, but maybe it isn't. Maybe, in its endless drifting, 3i Atlas has brushed past other wanderers, bits of other systems, fellow exiles traveling nowhere in particular. You can imagine their paths crossing silently, two tiny shadows passing in the dark, exchanging nothing but mutual recognition. Travelers don't always need to talk to understand each other. There's a kind of serenity in that. Out there, distance stops, meaning what it means here. There's no up or down, no here or there, just motion steady, unhurried, eternal. 3i Atlas doesn't seek a destination. It doesn't mourn its home or chase a future. It just is. And maybe that's the closest thing to peace the universe ever invented. Then, one day, a faint light ahead begins to grow. Not suddenly, but slowly, like a dawn that's been waiting for millions of years. A star, our sun, begins to warm the edges of its icy heart. For the first time in forever, it feels gravity tug again. Faint but familiar. Its long sleep is ending. And so, after drifting through darkness older than humanity itself, 3i Atlas stirs, not awake exactly, but aware, in the way that matter becomes aware when sunlight touches it. It begins to shine again, faintly at first, then brighter, as if remembering what it feels like to be seen. The long sleep is over. The traveler is arriving. It was discovered on the 13th of April 2024, a faint smear of light that moved too quickly for a background star. Within hours, astronomers realized what they were looking at: another messenger from outside the solar system. One night's observation became a cosmic announcement. We've had another visitor. Let's return to that night, the moment it all began. Somewhere, on the slopes of Haleakala, the wind brushed over steel domes and volcanic rock, carrying the scent of salt and metal. Inside the Atlas control room, the world was pixelated rows of monitors flickering in pale blue, the air filled with the low murmur of machinery and caffeine-fueled concentration. It was, by all accounts, an ordinary night of routine sky scanning until it wasn't. At 2:42 a.m., a blip appeared on one of the screens. Nothing remarkable at first glance, just another faint point of light shifting slightly between frames. The kind of thing astronomers log and move past 100 times a night. But then someone leaned closer, brow furrowed, and said the three words that always change everything. That's odd. Wait. They ran the motion calculation again, and then the room went still. The object wasn't orbiting the sun like everything else they were used to seeing. It was cutting through. Its speed didn't match any known asteroid, and its trajectory didn't loop back around. One scientist blinked at the data and muttered, "That can't be right." Another smiled and replied, "It probably is." It's funny how monumental discoveries often arrive disguised as errors. 3i Atlas didn't burst into view like a comet with a glowing tail. It didn't announce itself with fireworks. It appeared as a smudge, a quiet misfit among obedient stars. But in that tiny difference lay an entire revelation. Something from another solar system had just wandered into ours. Imagine being in that room when realization dawned. The silence before the laughter, the kind of disbelief that sits heavy before excitement breaks loose. Phones buzzed, Emails flew. Telescopes around the world pivoted in unison. One faint streak of light had just united half the planet in a collective. Look at that. If you could freeze that moment, all those scientists scattered across continents, bathed in the glow of monitors, you'd see something strangely poetic. Humans, huddled in little pockets of light, staring into infinity, whispering about a rock that doesn't belong here. You'd see what makes us extraordinary, our willingness to care about something that will never even notice us. Of course, the announcement didn't sound poetic at first. It came through in the usual understated tone of science. New interstellar candidate observed, pending confirmation. But behind that modest phrasing was awe, the third interstellar object ever recorded. The third time humanity caught the galaxy blinking. Soon, the news reached the world beyond observatories. Journalists stumbled over the pronunciation, 3I what, and space enthusiasts on social media immediately began posting blurry telescope images, captioned with things like, "The galaxy sent us mail again." Conspiracy theorists declared it a secret probe. Teachers turned it into classroom lessons. And for one shining moment, humanity, collectively, looked up. You imagine yourself outside that night, somewhere quiet. The city noise softened, the air cool. Above you, that tiny visitor slides through the constellations, indifferent and perfect. It won't stop, won't linger, but it's there. A real thing, from another star, visible just barely to anyone patient enough to look. You might not see it with your eyes, but knowing it's there is enough. Back in Hawaii, the scientists refined their measurements. They tracked its path through the constellations, noted its approach angle, compared its brightness to known comets. The orbit told the truth. It came from far beyond the edges of the solar system, not from the Kuiper belt, not from the Oort cloud, from the void between stars. The numbers whispered what their instincts already knew. When confirmation came, the email subject line was simple: Interstellar confirmed. No exclamation points, no drama, just fact. But in the small hours of that morning, the people who'd been watching the sky smiled quietly at their screens. They'd caught something ancient, something that had been traveling longer than humanity had been counting years. You can imagine them stepping outside as dawn approached, just to see the horizon blush gold, the same horizon that object had crossed only hours earlier. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of the telescope, 3I Atlas was still moving, tracing a path that would never repeat. The absurdity of it hits you, all this wonder, all this calculation, just to notice a grain of dust in the galactic wind. And yet, that's what makes it beautiful, because it means we're paying attention. It means, in all our chaos, someone is still watching the stars. When historians look back, they'll call it the third interstellar discovery. But for those who were awake that night, it was more personal. It was proof that the galaxy breathes, that it moves, that every so often it sends a reminder that we're part of something bigger and stranger than we remember during the day. And so, under a quiet sky, on a volcanic mountain in the middle of the Pacific, humanity once again met the universe halfway and whispered, "Welcome." Unlike Oumuamua's elongated shadow, that cosmic toothpick tumbling through the dark 3I Atlas seems to wear a different kind of disguise. It behaves more like a traditional comet, the kind we've known and loved since ancient times, when terrified villagers thought they were flaming swords of doom brandished by angry gods. Yet even with all our modern telescopes and interplanetary math, its exact shape remains frustratingly uncertain. When astronomers first spotted it in 2022, they expected a dramatic visitor, perhaps a needle-shaped shard like its predecessor, or a fractured rock trailing cosmic confetti. Instead, through their lenses, 3I Atlas appeared soft, shy, almost bashful, a diffuse smudge of light with a faint, whispering tail. It was as if the universe had drawn it with a watercolor brush, then blurred the edges just enough to keep us guessing. From billions of kilometers away, our most powerful observatories could only make out a ghost of motion, a pale halo of dust, ice, and frozen gas, shedding into space as the sun's warmth kissed its surface. In other words, it looked cometish, but not quite a comet either. Its tail wasn't robust like those of the grand showpieces of the solar system, not like Hale-Bopp or Neowise, whose sweeping arcs could fill a camera frame. 3I Atlas's tail was timid, gossamer, faint. If comets were party guests, this one stood quietly near the snack table, leaving before anyone noticed. Yet this subtlety was precisely what made it so strange. Normally, the shape of a comet's coma, that glowing cloud around its nucleus, reveals clues about what it's made of and how it spins. A spherical blur might suggest even outgassing, while an asymmetric one might hint at jets or eruptions pushing it in odd directions. But 3I Atlas didn't seem to play by those rules. Its light curve shifted unpredictably, and its core appeared almost shapeless, like a fog trying to pretend it was solid. Astronomers began running models, adjusting brightness profiles and albedo assumptions, trying to determine if there was even a stable nucleus at all. Some wondered if 3I Atlas might have broken apart before we got a clear look, a cosmic snowball melting mid-performance. Others speculated that its shape might be irregular, spinning chaotically like a potato on a trampoline. But with so few images, the truth dissolved into uncertainty, and that uncertainty made the mystery all the more poetic, because unlike spacecraft-visited comets like 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko, which the Rosetta mission famously revealed to be shaped like a rubber duck, 3I Atlas is an interstellar wanderer. It came from a place beyond our sun's influence, where the rules might be different. Perhaps, out there, comets evolve in colder, darker nurseries. Perhaps they form in strange binary systems, where radiation chisels them into odd geometries. Or perhaps the very notion of shape breaks down when something spends eons drifting between stars, eroded by nothing but cosmic rays and loneliness. Imagine it, a fragment of another solar system, frozen before Earth even formed, now passing silently through ours. Its faint tail unfurls like a sigh, tracing an invisible arc across the night sky. To us, it's a blur on a telescope monitor, but in that blur lies the entire biography of an alien world, the chemistry of a foreign sun, the mineral fingerprints of a long-gone planet, the echo of a formation story that ended billions of years ago. We just can't quite read it yet. Even as 3I Atlas approached the sun, astronomers waited for a grand reveal, perhaps a brightening flare, a sudden outburst, something to sharpen its features. But no, it stayed modest, like an artist who refuses to take the stage. When it finally looped past its perihelion, it left us only with a few spectral hints, a signature of carbon monoxide, some cyanide compounds, and dust grains older than humanity's first spark of fire. And then, quietly, it faded, retreating into the dark between stars once more. Its shape, never clearly seen, remains a question mark written in ice. Maybe that's the point. Not every cosmic visitor comes to be understood. Some arrive only to remind us that mystery still exists, that even with our billion-dollar telescopes and decades of data, there are still things that appear as mere blurs in the dark. And maybe that's what keeps us looking up, Because in every blur, in every unsharpened smear of light, lies the promise of discovery, the possibility that the next faint dot might not just be a comet, but a messenger, so the shape of 3I Atlas may forever stay undefined. Not a line, not a sphere, but a whisper, a hint, a memory of motion, a fleeting visitor reminding us that sometimes the universe doesn't reveal its face all at once. Sometimes it prefers to remain a silhouette, drifting just beyond our focus, daring us to dream about what it might look like, if only we could see it clearly. When sunlight hits its surface, 3I Atlas releases gases and dust clues about its makeup. Early spectra suggest compounds unlike those found in typical comets. It's as if chemistry itself took a different road under a different Sunday. What it carries could tell us how other solar systems build worlds. Let's start there with light meeting ice. Imagine the first rays of our sun brushing against an object that hasn't felt warmth in millions of years. Molecules shift, crack, and stretch like sleepy muscles. Gas escapes in small, glittering jets, pushing away from the nucleus in whispers. It's not an explosion, more like a sigh that's been waiting too long. Those escaping gases are messages coded, invisible telegrams written in the language of chemistry. When astronomers analyze them, they're reading an alien recipe. The ingredients: carbon monoxide, ammonia, methanol, cyanides, maybe even exotic compounds no one's seen before. You could think of it as interstellar perfume, a scent from another kitchen in the galaxy, drifting into ours. Now, here's where the poetry hides behind the paperwork. Scientists don't smell it. Of course they measure it. They point their spectrographs toward the comet's faint tail and break down the light. Each wavelength becomes a clue, a fingerprint. To the human eye, it's just a smear of pale luminescence. But to the instruments, it's a symphony of lines, each one singing, "I came from somewhere else." What's strange and delightful is that the ratios don't match what we know. Some elements are abundant, others missing entirely. It's as if 3I Atlas was assembled from a different version of the periodic table. Not alien in a sci-fi sense, no neon green goo or unpronounceable minerals, but alien in pattern. Familiar notes arranged into an unfamiliar song. That's the quiet thrill of it, realizing that even chemistry, that most fundamental of sciences, can have an accent. Our solar system's matter speaks one dialect. This object speaks another. The universe, it seems, is multilingual. Think about how personal that feels. Every planet, every comet, every asteroid carries the chemical signature of its birthplace. They're like cookies baked in different ovens, all flour and sugar, but never quite the same. 3I Atlas, then, is a taste from a kitchen light years away. And here we are, sniffing the crumbs with telescopes and equations. Now picture the sunlight glittering off its tail. Tiny ice grains vaporize, releasing ancient atoms into space. For a brief moment, the void between worlds fills with ghostly mist. Inside that mist are clues about the star. It once orbited, its temperature, its radiation, the materials that once swirled around it. In a way, the comet is a historian, carrying a fossilized snapshot of a solar system we'll never see. And there's humor here too. Somewhere in the data logs, a scientist probably wrote, "Detection of unexpected cyanide ratios," which sounds terrifyingly casual for, "We just sniffed alien air." That's science for you, understatement wrapped around wonder. Still, the findings are profound. If 3I Atlas truly contains compounds not common in our own system, it suggests that the way planets form, the building blocks of life itself, can vary wildly from one star to another. Maybe some stars produce icy worlds rich in carbon chains, while others bake them away entirely. Maybe some worlds form oceans of methane, others seas of salt. It's diversity at the most fundamental level, chemistry as culture. You might be tempted to think of 3I Atlas as an ambassador, and in a sense, it is. It didn't come here intentionally, but it still carries a message that creation doesn't repeat itself. Every solar system invents its own version of existence. If that's true, then life elsewhere, should it exist, won't just look different. It'll be different, down to the way its atoms hum. That's both exhilarating and humbling, because it means that even if we met life beyond Earth one day, it might not recognize us as alive. Our chemistry might seem as strange to it as 3I Atlas's is to us. But here's the beautiful symmetry. Even without understanding, the connection exists. Our sun's light touched its surface. Its dust now floats through our space. Some of those particles might even drift toward Earth, invisible and harmless, falling through our atmosphere as cosmic snowflakes. Somewhere out there, a molecule from another world could be settling quietly on your rooftop right now. And that, in its own quiet way, is extraordinary. A fragment of an alien sun's workshop here, mingling with ours. So the astronomers keep studying, decoding, comparing spectra late into the night. Not for glory, not for answers, but for that electric moment when they see a new pattern emerge. A pattern that says, the universe is still experimenting. And that's what 3I Atlas reminds us, that creation never stopped. It's still out there, mixing elements, shaping worlds, and sending its wanderers across the dark to share what it's learned. Its path tells a story of momentum and chance. 3I Atlas entered from the direction of the constellation Serpens, looped close to the sun, and will exit towards Sculptor, vanishing back into interstellar space. It will never return. Each pass through our system is a one-way journey. Let's trace that road together, not on a map, but through imagination. Picture the night sky, the serpent of stars coiling near the Milky Way, the faint glimmer of Serpens where this traveler first appeared. From that distant backdrop, 3I Atlas slipped into our neighborhood, invisible at first, a speck gliding along a cosmic lane no one had paved. Its path wasn't planned, it was sculpted by gravity, that invisible hand that never stops drawing curves. Serpens the serpent bearer, Sculptor the artist. There's poetry in those names, as if the universe itself were staging an allegory. A snake releasing a secret, an artist catching it in motion. Between those two constellations lies the arc of 3I Atlas's visit, a brief, glittering brushstroke across the dark canvas of our solar system. Astronomers mapped its trajectory using equations so complex they might as well be spells. From the outer reaches, it came skimming in from above the ecliptic, that flat plane where all our planets march obediently around the Sunday. But this one didn't play by the rules. It came at a steep tilt, as though it had been flung in by a careless hand. If our solar system were a dinner plate, 3I Atlas would be the pea that bounced in from across the room. And it came fast, 60 kilometers per second. That's 134,000 miles per hour. You can't even think that fast. If you could somehow stand on Mercury, you'd see it blaze through the inner system, like a thief caught in a flashlight beam, curving briefly around the sun before sprinting away toward eternity. Its path was shaped by everything it passed. The sun tugged it, Jupiter nudged it, and the dust of the solar wind painted faint ripples into its tail. Every encounter, every gravitational handshake left a small mark, a bend, a twist like thumbprints on a snowball rolling through infinity. When astronomers plotted it, the orbit looked elegant, A single long curve, dipping near the sun and then flinging outward again, never looping back. The definition of goodbye, written in mathematics. Parabolic, they called it. A shape with no return. Imagine being that object rushing into brightness after millions of years in darkness, feeling the heat rise, the surface crack, the gases hiss. The sun fills your entire sky, and for a moment, you glow. Then, just as quickly, you're gone, leaving behind only a streak of ionized dust and a few terabytes of data in human computers. There's something humbling about that motion. It reminds you that the universe doesn't do permanence. Everything that arrives also leaves comets, civilizations, even stars. Our solar system is just one intersection on an endless highway. Objects come through, wave politely, and vanish again, carrying with them pieces of light and silence. If you could trace 3I Atlas's journey backward, you'd pass through the void between stars, a million-year stretch where nothing but starlight touches its surface. Go further, and you'd arrive at the outskirts of another system, one with its own planets, comets, maybe even its own curious astronomers. The roads between suns are long, but they all connect somewhere. Of course, humanity being what it is, we immediately wondered whether we could catch it. Some engineers half-jokingly proposed a probe, a spacecraft that could intercept an interstellar object and hitch a ride. Others sighed, knowing it was already too late. You can't chase something that moves faster than your dreams. By the time the idea formed, 3I Atlas was already past Mars, halfway gone, humming along its escape route. But the thought lingers that one day we might be the ones to send a traveler like it. Maybe a probe, maybe a message, maybe something small and strange, carrying our own chemistry and stories into the dark. Perhaps one day, another civilization will look up, see a faint blur, and name it something like 7I Earth. For now, though, 3I Atlas continues its glide toward Sculptor, toward open space, where gravity's pull weakens into nothing. Soon it will cross the heliopause, leaving behind the solar wind and entering true interstellar night again. No light, no warmth, just quiet, the same quiet it knew before. You can almost imagine it looking back, not literally, but in the poetic sense. Behind it, a faint blue dot circles an ordinary star, a world that noticed, a species that watched, measured, and whispered about its passing. That may be the most human part of this story, our instinct to mark the paths of things that never meant to be seen. And so, 3I Atlas continues, silent and sure, carving its line between constellations. Its road will never end, because in space, there are no fences, only directions. It will fade from our instruments, our charts, and eventually our memories, but the orbit remains, written in gravity's handwriting. Every traveler leaves a trace, even when no one's left to read it. Over millions of years, radiation reshapes these travelers. Cosmic rays pockmark their surfaces, stripping volatile ice, altering color and chemistry. By the time we see them, they are ancient relics, scarred by time. To study one is to read a stone diary written by the galaxy itself. Let's imagine what that diary looks like. Not neat lines of handwriting, but a record carved in radiation. Every atom in 3I Atlas's body tells a story of collisions, exposure, endurance. Imagine the surface like an old traveler's face, weathered, cracked, and quietly proud of its scars. Each one marks a century, a million years, or a cosmic event that reshaped it in silence. In deep space, nothing truly happens quickly. There's no wind, no rain, no erosion as we know it. Instead, there's patience, the slow tattoo of particles from exploding stars, peppering its surface for eons. You could call them freckles of the void, a delicate sprinkling of memory. Cosmic rays are merciless, though not malicious. They slice through rock like invisible chisels, shattering molecules, rearranging atoms. Over time, ice darkens into tar-like residues, metals lose their shine, and once bright surfaces become matte and ancient. It's not decay, exactly more like transformation. A wanderer doesn't age in space. It evolves into something older than time itself. If you could touch 3I Atlas, impossible, of course, unless you enjoy instant vaporization, it would feel rough and brittle, like volcanic glass. The outermost layer, known as the radiation crust, might only be a few millimeters thick, but within it lies millions of years of cosmic graffiti. Each atom there has been rearranged hundreds of times by starlight and high-energy particles, rewritten again and again, until the original material is almost unrecognizable. It's strange to think that destruction and preservation can coexist like that. The more time and radiation an object endures, the more data it carries. It's like burning a book, only to discover the ashes have their own kind of language. Scientists call it cosmic weathering, but that sounds far too gentle for what's really happening. It's more like being sandblasted by eternity. And yet, 3I Atlas survives. That's the wonder of it. While stars collapse and galaxies collide, this one piece of frozen debris keeps its shape, maybe slightly eroded, maybe chemically changed, but still whole. It's been through more than any spacecraft we've ever launched, more than our planet itself. It's the definition of endurance, a cosmic veteran, drifting quietly through the aftermath of creation. You might picture it glowing faintly red, its color deepened by radiation exposure. In truth, many interstellar objects show this reddish hue, not from heat, but from carbon-rich compounds altered by time and light. They're like the universe's version of rust oxidation on a galactic scale. It's oddly beautiful, the signature color of everything that's been wandering too long. Imagine the journey in human terms. A traveler walks for centuries, collecting dust from each world they pass. Their coat fades, their boots wear thin, but their eyes, or in this case, their icy core, stay bright. The outer layer changes, but the essence remains. That's 3I Atlas. Old clothes, ancient road, ageless heart. Radiation also plays tricks beneath the surface. Deep within, untouched ices remain pristine, sealed off from the cosmic storm. That's why studying one of these objects is so precious. Beneath its battle-worn exterior lies untouched history. If we could ever bring a fragment back to Earth, it would be like opening a time capsule, not just from another era, but from another solar system's childhood. And yet, all that information comes at a cost. For millions of years, 3I Atlas has endured isolation, bombardment, and the slow reshaping of its identity. It has lost mass, shed gases, grown darker. In human terms, it's the galactic equivalent of someone who's been traveling so long they've forgotten their native language. The chemistry has changed, but the motion remains. Still, the universe doesn't pity its wanderers. It celebrates them, quietly, through starlight and shadow. Every scar on 3I Atlas is a note in a symphony written in silence. When astronomers study its spectrum, those faint fingerprints of elements, they're reading music that began before our planet had oceans. It's humbling to think that light from our sun, reflected off that scarred surface, now travels back to our telescopes, carrying a story billions of years long. Each photon, bouncing from crater to lens, is a courier of time, and when it lands on a scientist's sensor, the story continues the diary read for the first time in the language of data and awe. If comets could dream, perhaps their dreams would look like streaks of light, memories of the stars that burned them, of the long dark that shaped them. But maybe they don't dream at all. Maybe that's our job, to dream for them, to give their silence meaning. Because in the end, studying 3I Atlas isn't about discovering what space does to a rock. It's about discovering what the universe does to memory, how it writes, erases, and rewrites again, until every surface becomes scripture. When scientists modeled its speed, they found something odd. It was barely interstellar. It moves just above the escape velocity of our sun, suggesting it may have been slowed by something, perhaps a close brush with another star, or even an unseen planet. Every orbit tells a hidden story. Let's pause there. Barely interstellar. It's a strange phrase, like describing someone as barely leaving the house. Most visitors from beyond come screaming through space, at impossible speeds, wild and uncatchable, but not 3I Atlas. No, this one drifts like it's forgotten something at the last stop. It's moving fast enough to leave, but not by much. A traveler hesitating at the doorway of our solar system. Astronomers ran the numbers over and over, certain there had been a mistake. Interstellar objects don't stroll, they sprint. But 3I Atlas crept through, its trajectory whispering that somewhere in the vastness of the void, something or someone slowed it down. Maybe another star's gravity tugged at it on its way here. Maybe it grazed a rogue planet wandering between systems, exchanging a little momentum in a cosmic near-miss. Or maybe it's simply tired. That's the thing about objects like this. They carry stories without words. The shape of their orbits is their autobiography. When you plot 3I Atlas's path, it looks like a wound curve, not quite circular, not quite parabolic. It dips near the sun and drifts outward again, its velocity hovering right at the edge of freedom. It's as if the universe asked, "Are you sure you want to go?" And 3I Atlas quietly nodded. You can almost feel the scientist's confusion turning into fascination. If it's moving slower than expected, maybe it's older. Maybe it's been wandering so long that the accumulated drag of time, dust, radiation, encounters with stray gas clouds has worn it down. Imagine traveling through molasses made of starlight for 10 million years. You'd slow down too. But there's another, wilder possibility. Maybe 3I Atlas didn't come from another system at all. Maybe it came from ours. Imagine that an ancient fragment ejected billions of years ago, looping through the galaxy only to return home by coincidence. A prodigal rock, finding its way back after epochs of exile. Scientists can't confirm that yet, but the idea is deliciously poetic. A comet that left before the dinosaurs were born, coming home just in time to confuse the humans. To understand how strange that is, think about the sun's escape velocity, roughly 42 kilometers per second. That's the cosmic equivalent of breaking the speed limit forever. Once you're past that threshold, you don't come back. Number 3. I Atlas is moving just a few kilometers per second above that line, barely free, almost bound, like a letter thrown into the wind that nearly lands back at your feet. And that's where the mystery deepens. What could slow something like this down? Space is mostly empty, no traffic jams, no friction, no speed limits. To lose velocity, it would need a gravitational nudge, a close encounter, a flirtation with something massive and unseen. Perhaps a passing star brushed it, trading a bit of energy. Or maybe it slid through the outskirts of a hidden planetary system one will never see, and that brief meeting changed its course forever. If this were a movie, this would be the moment the music swells and the camera zooms out, revealing a secret, ancient planet waiting in the dark. But in reality, the truth is quieter and more haunting. Every rock, every comet, every dust grain in the galaxy is shaped by invisible relationships. 1,000 gravitational conversations we'll never overhear. 3i Atlas is just one result, a leftover, a witness, an accident that happens to pass through our field of view. Still, you can't help but feel affection for it. There's something underdog about a comet that doesn't quite fit the rules. Not fast enough to be a proper interstellar drifter, not bound enough to belong. It's the cosmic equivalent of the kid who sits at the back of class, mysterious and slightly misunderstood, who turns out to have the most interesting story. When the data first came in, some astronomers joked that 3i Atlas might be the lazy interstellar object. Others proposed that it could have grazed an interstellar gas cloud, losing just enough energy to make its trajectory weird. One even called it a spaceball with stage fright, a comet that slowed down the moment everyone started watching. But behind the humor was wonder, because if it really has been slowed by a near encounter, that means it carries evidence of something unseen, a gravitational fingerprint left by another world. Studying its orbit could reveal not just its past, but a hint of what else is out there, hidden in the quiet. And that's the secret beauty of these anomalies. The universe doesn't make mistakes, it makes clues. Every deviation, every odd speed or crooked path is a breadcrumb left by something bigger, something we haven't found yet. So, 3i Atlas glides on the comet that shouldn't exist, the traveler that moves just slow enough to make us curious. Its orbit is both a map and a mystery, pointing toward invisible hands that shaped it long before we were here to notice. It will leave soon, crossing the solar frontier and vanishing back into anonymity. But that faint wobble in its speed will linger in our models, a quiet reminder that even the smallest traveler can rewrite the rules of motion, and that every goodbye in space leaves behind the trace of a story we're still learning how to read. It's easy to wonder why anyone loses sleep over a faint comet no one will ever see with their eyes. But each interstellar object is a message in a bottle, a piece of another world, crossing space to tell us what's out there. 3i Atlas is both a relic and a roadmap. Let's start with the honest question. Why do we care? Why does humanity, a species that regularly forgets where it put its keys, obsess over a rock the size of a small building hurtling through space? It's not glamorous. It won't save the planet. You can't post a selfie with it. And yet, somewhere right now, a handful of very tired scientists are still staring at screens, running simulations, trying to decode its story. Maybe it's because deep down, we recognize something of ourselves in it. 3i Atlas is a traveler, restless, scarred, impossible to stop. We are, too. We've always looked outward, tracing light through the dark, searching for patterns that might explain why we're here. This faint comet, drifting between suns, is the purest symbol of that instinct. It reminds us that even when everything seems still, the universe is moving, and so are we. But there's more than poetry here. 3i Atlas is science's version of time travel. It's a fragment from another solar system, made of elements mixed under different rules, under another star's light. It carries within it a record of alien physics, the conditions that shaped its parent world. Studying it is like finding a fossil that fell from another dimension. You can't ignore it. You have to read it. When astronomers analyze its chemistry, its orbit, its brightness. They're doing something quietly heroic, trying to piece together a story written in another language, with half the pages missing. That's not just data collection, that's interstellar archaeology. And the dig site happens to be flying by at 60 kilometers per second. Still, the humor of it all can't be ignored. Humanity built particle accelerators, sent probes to other planets, decoded the genome, and now here we are, losing collective sleep over a blurry smudge in space. It's like finding a single grain of sand in the Sahara and throwing a parade. But that's the magic of curiosity. It doesn't care how small the object is, only that it's unknown. And for scientists, unknown is the sweetest word there is. 3. Atlas might seem trivial, but it's a reminder that the galaxy isn't sealed off from us. Material is constantly moving between stars, comets, dust, atoms, maybe even the ingredients for life. Every visitor we detect is proof that our solar system isn't an island. It's part of a cosmic ocean where everything drifts, mixes, and shares. Imagine that the seeds of life, or at least the raw materials, tossed from one star system to another over billions of years. Maybe some of the stuff that built Earth once drifted like 3 Atlas. Maybe some part of us began as dust ejected from a sun long gone. You, sitting here, might be built partly from the same cosmic cargo. Suddenly, a faint rock doesn't seem so insignificant. And then there's the emotional truth. Discovery, no matter how small, gives us hope. In a world where so much feels known, where satellites map every inch of Earth, and algorithms predict our next purchase, it's comforting to know there are still mysteries too distant to photograph clearly. 3. Atlas is one of those mysteries, proof that not everything can be reduced to pixels and press releases. Think of it like finding a note from the past written in starlight. You can't read the handwriting, but you can feel the meaning. It says, "There's more. Keep looking." Even the act of searching is part of the story. Astronomers track 3 Atlas, not just to learn what it is, but to prepare for what comes next. Every visitor teaches us how to recognize the next one faster, how to read the sky better, how to listen for whispers in the static. It's like learning a new dialect of the universe, one strange object at a time. And there's humor too, in how disproportionate our excitement can be. The press releases use phrases like, "object of great scientific importance," but what they mean is, tiny frozen rock that probably won't even wave on its way out. Yet even that's enough to make us pause, look up, and feel a little smaller, in a good way, because that's what this comet really is. Perspective. A cosmic memo reminding us that the universe doesn't revolve around our deadlines, our inboxes, or our species. It's older, larger, and infinitely patient. And every now and then, it sends a traveler to remind us how temporary we are. 3 Atlas isn't just a rock, it's a bridge, a physical connection between suns, a reminder that no star stands alone. And in a quiet way, it's a mirror, showing us what curiosity looks like when it outlives its home. So yes, we care. Not because it's useful or because it's beautiful, but because it's their proof that even in the coldest corners of the galaxy, something moves, and that movement reaches us. And maybe that's enough reason to keep watching the sky. There are missions on the drawing board now, projects like Comet Interceptor and Project Lyra, designed to chase the next interstellar visitor. The idea is simple and impossible. Launch fast enough to meet something that's already leaving. Every astronomer knows the same irony: we always see them just a little too late. Picture it. A team of engineers staring at a whiteboard covered in equations and caffeine stains, trying to solve what might be the universe's most frustrating riddle: how to catch a rock that doesn't want to be caught. They're designing spacecraft that could launch on a moment's notice, waiting like sprinters at the edge of a track, hoping the next cosmic visitor gives them just enough warning to chase it down. It's a wild idea. The sky is enormous. The travelers are faint, fast, and silent. Most of them pass unnoticed, unannounced, and unbothered. By the time telescopes spot them, they're already waving goodbye. Yet, humanity being what it is, we can't resist trying anyway. We see a faint streak of light and immediately think, let's build a rocket for that. The Comet Interceptor mission, a collaboration between the European Space Agency and Japan's JAXA, plans to do exactly that. They'll park a spacecraft near the L2 Lagrange point, a kind of cosmic waiting room behind Earth. When the next visitor is spotted, the probe will spring into action, redirecting itself to intercept the target mid-flight. Think of it as the galaxy's most ambitious game of tag. Then there's Project Lyra, a more audacious dream. It proposes building a probe fast enough to chase down an object like Oumuamua after it's already left. Yes, you read that right. The plan is to launch years late, accelerate like a bullet, and still somehow catch something already disappearing into interstellar space. If successful, it would be the equivalent of throwing a paper airplane across the Pacific and hitting a fly. You can almost hear the engineers' dry laughter echoing in the labs. They know the odds, they know the math, but they also know this is how progress begins, with a plan that sounds slightly ridiculous. Humanity, after all, specializes in trying to grab the ungrabbable. Imagine, for a moment, what catching one would actually look like. A probe coasting through the dark, instruments ready, waiting for a ghost. The object ahead, faint, ancient, untouched, comes into view. Cameras hum to life. Sensors unfold like petals. A million lines of code, written years before, finally wake up. And then, for a few precious hours, two travelers, one born of human ambition, one born of stellar chaos, meet in the dark. The probe wouldn't land, of course. The speeds are too great, the timing too tight. But even a flyby would change everything. A few images, a dust sample, a handful of data points, that's all it would take to transform mystery into understanding. Imagine seeing the surface of an interstellar object up close, the texture of a world that's seen suns we'll never visit, the scars of its long journey etched in ice and stone. And yet, even as we dream of it, there's a kind of humility woven into the effort, because for all our rockets and equations, we're still playing catch-up with the cosmos. 3 Atlas came and went before we could even build the first bolt of a spacecraft. We're always a few years behind, a few million kilometers short, but maybe that's what makes the pursuit beautiful. The understanding that some things are meant to be chased, not captured. You can see the parallel, can't you? Every person has their own 3 Atlas, something fleeting they're trying to understand before it slips away. Love, time, memory, purpose, all interstellar objects of the human heart. We study them, reach for them, and accept that we'll never fully catch them. But in the reaching, we learn. Back in the labs, the scientists keep refining their designs. Faster engines, smarter sensors, better launch readiness. They talk about gravity assists, solar sails, and nuclear propulsion with the same calm tone one might use to discuss breakfast. And maybe one day, they'll succeed. Maybe the next time the universe tosses a traveler our way, we'll be ready to meet it halfway. Until then, we keep watching the skies, patient, persistent, slightly undercaffeinated. We build telescopes bigger than cathedrals, rockets stronger than myths, and computers that can detect a flicker in the dark. We do it because we want to be there first, not for fame or profit, but for that quiet moment when a machine we made looks at a world we've never seen and sees us reflected in its frozen light. So, could we ever catch one? Maybe not today, maybe not this century, but one day, a probe will streak through the darkness, cameras humming, instruments open, and it will pass beside something older than memory. And in that instant, every sleepless night, every calculation, every dream will be worth it. Because catching a traveler from another star isn't just about science. It's about proving, once again, that curiosity travels faster than light, and that we are, at our best, a species forever reaching for the things that are already leaving. Once the excitement fades, what remains is data, brightness curves, spectra, orbital models. Each night, telescopes feed numbers into servers, lines into spreadsheets, equations into meaning. It's not glamorous, but from that noise comes pattern, and from pattern, understanding. It's a bit like the morning after a festival. The lights are off, the crowd's gone home, and what's left is clean-up ticket stubs, footprints, and memories waiting to be sorted. That's what astronomers face once 3I Atlas slips beyond their view. The wonder is over. Now it's down to decimals. Picture the control room after Discovery Week. Coffee cups, half empty. Whiteboards still scribbled with urgent notes. Velocity, tail length, magnitude drift. The scientists aren't watching the sky anymore. They're staring at screens filled with columns of numbers that look like static to anyone else. Somewhere in that static, a comet's life story hides, waiting to be coaxed out one equation at a time. You can imagine the rhythm of it. A telescope scans the night sky, its detectors capturing faint photons from a traveler millions of kilometers away. Those photons hit a sensor, get converted into digital signals, and then into data packets. The data travels through cables, across oceans, into databases. And there, inside that flood of code and noise, is the heartbeat of 3I Atlas, not in color or sound, but in statistics. Brightness curves show how it flared when sunlight touched it, then dimmed as it left. Each curve tells when the ice melted, when the dust bloomed, when it began to vanish. Spectra, those beautiful barcodes of light, reveal its ingredients: cyanides, carbon chains, frozen breath from another star. Orbital models turn chaos into choreography, the exact arc it traced through our solar system, down to the fraction of a second. From afar, this might seem dry, but in those files lies the same awe as the night of discovery, only slower, quieter, distilled. It's the difference between fireworks and archaeology. One dazzles, the other endures. Most of this work happens alone, long after the headlines have faded. Picture a researcher in a quiet office at 2 a.m., illuminated only by the blue glow of a monitor. They scroll through graphs, adjust parameters, run simulations that take hours. Outside, the world sleeps. Inside, they're replaying the movement of a comet across the Sunday. It's the loneliest form of storytelling, converting raw starlight into sentences the universe never wrote down. Sometimes, the data misbehaves. A brightness dip that makes no sense. A spectral line that shouldn't exist. You can almost hear the scientist sigh, mutter, "That can't be right," and then smile, because that's how discovery always begins. What looks like noise might be the universe whispering something new. There's a dry humor in how this process contrasts with the grandeur of the cosmos. We imagine astronomy as a romantic calling, gazing through telescopes, eyes full of wonder. In reality, it's mostly spreadsheets. endless, beautiful, spreadsheets, cells full of floating point numbers that could mean either cosmic breakthrough or dust on the lens. Still, the pattern emerges. Slowly, from the noise, something takes shape. The orbit stabilizes. The chemical fingerprint sharpens. The blur becomes a personality. 3. I-Atlas stops being a mystery and starts being a record, a documented event in the ongoing diary of the sky. In those patterns, humanity finds its quiet victory, because this is how we touch the unreachable. We can't chase 3. I-Atlas, can't hold it, can't see it without instruments, but we can translate it. Its faint light becomes data, its motion becomes math, and through that alchemy, something vast becomes knowable. You might find it funny, all this effort for a visitor that never even noticed us. But that's the magic of curiosity. It doesn't need acknowledgement. We study because we must, because our nature is to turn wonder into structure. Even in an uncaring universe, we care enough for both sides. Eventually, the project files are archived. A final summary appears in a quiet scientific journal. Interstellar Object 3 I-Atlas, observed April 2024. No headlines this time, just the calm rhythm of knowledge passing hands. Future astronomers will open those files decades from now, run new models, and find that the data still hums with life. Because information, like light, never truly dies, it only changes form. In a sense, the data is the comet now. Its tail has faded, its orbit forgotten, but the numbers remain little digital fossils of its visit. When you think about it, that's the perfect ending. The traveler moves on, but its echo stays behind, captured not in stone or story, but in patterns of light and logic. That's the real beauty of the data trail. It reminds us that even fleeting things leave tracks. You just have to look closely enough, long enough, to see them buried in the noise, waiting to become meaning. As it passed closest to the sun, 3 I-Atlas brightened just enough to be seen by amateur astronomers. For a few days, it even grew a tail sunlight burning vapor off its surface. Then, just as quickly, it dimmed, the heat fading, the ice sealing over once more. For something that's been asleep for millions of years, that brief moment in sunlight was the closest thing it will ever have to a heartbeat. Imagine it, a frozen wanderer suddenly awash in golden fire. The light touches its surface, the ice hisses, vapor unfurls into a trail of dust and mist that catches the glow like smoke on water. For a few cosmic seconds, the traveler is alive. This is the part of its journey astronomers love most, the showy part. The moment when something invisible becomes visible, when the sky, for once, reveals what it's been hiding. For a handful of nights, telescopes from Chile to Hawaii turned toward the same patch of space, and there it was, faint, fragile, shimmering, a visitor saying hello in the only way it could, by shining. If you'd looked up through one of those scopes, you'd have seen a dot with a tail, glowing faintly against the black. It wasn't bright enough for naked eyes, but for those who knew where to look, it was there, moving, silently, gliding like a lantern, carried on a slow wind. Even through all our technology, it looked soft, delicate, almost uncertain, as though it wasn't meant to be seen at all. That light, by the way, wasn't just pretty, it was data. Every flicker, every subtle change in brightness told astronomers something. How fast the ice was melting, what gases were escaping, how the nucleus rotated under heat. The sun wasn't just warming it, it was interrogating it. For those few days, 3 I-Atlas became a living experiment, the laboratory of the cosmos, playing out in real time. Imagine the moment of closest approach, the perihelion, the comet skimming just within the inner solar system, where sunlight feels almost physical, a warm push instead of a glow. Its icy surface sublimates solid straight to vapor, and bursts of gas escape like sighs. Each jet shifts its course slightly, unpredictable and graceful. If you could stand nearby and survive, you'd hear nothing, but you'd feel it, the pressure of light, the slow unraveling of frost into brilliance. There's humor in the thought, something that has traveled for millions of years just to pass through our system for a week, flash briefly, and leave. The cosmic equivalent of driving across the galaxy just to wave out the window. But that's what makes it beautiful. The transience. The way something ancient can blaze for only a moment and still leave a mark. Even the tail, that iconic symbol of comets, is temporary. As it passed the sun, 3I Atlas's tail grew faintly blue-white, a mix of ionized gases glowing in solar wind. It stretched millions of kilometers behind it, delicate as spider silk. For a few days, it followed the rules of beauty. Then, as it moved away, the light dimmed, the vapor froze again, and the tail faded into nothing. The visitor went back to being a ghost. There's something deeply human about our fascination with these fleeting lights. We name them, chase them, photograph them, even though we know they'll vanish. Maybe because, in some quiet way, they remind us of ourselves, brief sparks in an enormous dark. Back in observatories and backyards, astronomers watched 3I Atlas dim with a mix of melancholy and satisfaction. The data was collected, the spectacle over. They knew they'd likely never see it again. Some even said goodbye out loud, not out of superstition, but gratitude, because for those nights, they were part of something vast. And then, almost imperceptibly, it was gone, back into the quiet. The sunlight faded from its surface, the gases froze mid-breath, and the traveler continued on, trailing a faint line of dust like a signature at the edge of the solar system. Its moment in the light had ended, but the story it carried was only beginning to unfold, now written in our data, our memories, our wonder. You could think of that encounter as a kind of handshake between two worlds. The sun reaching out with warmth, 3I Atlas answering, with a flicker of brilliance, and then parting without a word. No drama, no explosion, just mutual acknowledgement across the void. For the sun, it was nothing, a tiny breath against its immensity. But for us, it was a reminder, even in a universe where everything moves, every path crosses something else's light eventually. So the traveler continues, cooling again, its brief glow fading behind it. The ice seals over, the dust settles, the warmth becomes a memory. But somewhere, in a telescope's archived frames, that shimmer still exists, a record of the week when a frozen piece of another world came close enough to burn and then slipped silently away. Our solar system is full of its own comets, Oort cloud, travelers that rarely return. To them, 3I Atlas must have looked like a cousin from another country, speaking a dialect of ice they no longer remember. It reminds us that even the most local dust has distant roots. Let's picture that strange family reunion far beyond the planets, where the sun is just another bright star in the sky. Out there lies the Oort cloud, a vast sphere of frozen remnants, orbiting so distantly that a single loop around the sun can take millions of years. It's the quiet outskirts of our system, a place of comets sleeping in crystal shells. And through that slumbering crowd, 3I Atlas drifts past like a stranger humming an old tune they once knew. Imagine the comets noticing. Not literally, of course. They're asleep, inert, suspended in the cold. But if they could feel, if ice had memory, perhaps something inside them would stir at the sight. A faint recognition, a shimmer in the dark. That one, they might whisper in the language of gravity, that one doesn't smell like home. Because 3I Atlas carries a chemistry foreign to theirs, built beneath another sun, born from different dust. Its ice remembers light of a different color, its carbon a different spectrum. Its family, yes, but distant family, the kind that arrives unannounced, bearing stories from faraway lands and confusing everyone at dinner. The Oort cloud itself is a mystery, not a tidy ring or a disk, but a vast halo surrounding our system, trillions of icy objects scattered across light years. Most will never return. Some will, plunging inward as long-period comets, briefly visiting the inner solar system before retreating again into their frigid night. Each one is a survivor of the sun's chaotic youth, a remnant of formation when planets were still jostling for position. In that context, 3I Atlas isn't strange, it's familiar. It's what happens everywhere. Every star probably has its own Oort cloud, its own halo of frozen wanderers waiting for a nudge. Every so often, gravity plays dice and flings one outward to drift for eons before stumbling into another system. It's cosmic immigration at its slowest pace. You could think of the galaxy as one endless exchange program of comets. They travel, they trade material, they cross borders that no one built, and each one carries a sample of home. When 3I Atlas passed through ours, it wasn't just visiting, it was delivering mail from another neighborhood of the galaxy. If you imagine it visually, it's almost funny. The Oort cloud's countless comets frozen in their orbits, like an audience of quiet spectators, and through them, this faint outsider gliding past, glowing softly. For a few weeks, it catches the sun's light, trailing its delicate tail like a foreign flag. Then it moves on. The local comets, still dreaming, remain unchanged, but the scene feels poetic nonetheless. There's a human tendency to imagine companionship in these patterns. We can't help it. We personify the stars, give moods to moons, and now we're picturing comets gossiping in the dark. But beneath the humor lies truth. The universe does connect its parts, and not just metaphorically. Dust from one star system really can seed another. Every atom in your body has likely been recycled through multiple suns. In a very literal sense, we're all interstellar immigrants too. And maybe that's why stories like this resonate. When astronomers talk about 3I Atlas passing through, they're also talking about us, about connection, about origin. Our solar system isn't isolated. It's one branch on a galactic tree that constantly sheds and receives seeds. Every comet, local or foreign, is part of that cycle of exchange. Now imagine, just for fun, the Oort cloud waking, all those silent wanderers stirring at once, recognizing the visitor's passage. Maybe a few even follow, drawn by gravitational curiosity. Maybe one breaks free, beginning its own long fall toward the Sunday. One visitor sparks another, the chain reaction of celestial curiosity. Of course, from our perspective, nothing moves. These motions take centuries, millennia, epochs. But that's the beauty of astronomy. It teaches patience. You begin to appreciate stories so slow they outlast civilizations. 3I Atlas is just one frame in that cosmic film reel, and we happen to be alive for it. So, while the comets of the Oort cloud remain frozen in their endless waltz, this outsider slips through, reminding us that nothing stays truly local. Every piece of dust, every grain of ice, carries the signature of somewhere else. And one day, perhaps, one of our comets will drift outward, pushed by some passing star, and find itself crossing another sky, a foreign object whispering, "I once belonged to a system near a small yellow Sunday." Somewhere, someone will point a telescope and name it, and they'll wonder, as we do now, about the place it came from, and the comets that once watched it pass. Because in the end, every traveler, even a comet, is both a messenger and a mirror, showing us that across all the distances and silences of the cosmos, everything is just dust in motion, finding new homes in familiar light. Every interstellar object begins in another solar system, born from the same dusty disks that build planets. Sometimes, gravity flings them away, like seeds thrown from a garden. They spend millions of years wandering between stars, frozen and forgotten, until, by sheer chance, they cross ours. Let's imagine that garden for a moment. A young solar system just beginning to bloom, a star still wrapped in the leftovers of its own birth, glowing fiercely in the haze. Around it, dust and gas swirl like flour in sunlight, gathering into clumps, then rocks, then worlds. You could almost smell the heat of new creation, a mix of ozone and burnt minerals, like cosmic pottery still cooling from the kiln. Somewhere in that maelstrom, a fragment breaks free. Maybe a newborn planet passes too close. Maybe two forming giants tug at each other's gravity until something gives. The fragment, a chunk of ice and metal, and possibility is flung outward, faster, farther, until the light of its sun fades into memory, and the great dark opens before it. That fragment becomes an interstellar traveler. It's no longer bound to any system, no longer claimed by any orbit. Its future is exile, but not in the sad way, more in the eternal backpacker kind of way. You can almost imagine it humming to itself as it drifts between stars, shrugging off entire eons like long, quiet naps. You might be tempted to call it lifeless, just a rock, just a comet, but that undersells the drama. That object has seen things no probe or telescope ever will. It's passed by alien suns, crossed the shadows of dead worlds, watched nebulae shimmer like fireworks in slow motion. And through all of it, it's remained silent, steady, and whole, a grain of cosmic patience. If you were somehow standing on its surface, not that you could, but imagine you'd see a sky that never changes. No sunrise, no orbit, just a permanent night, spattered with unmoving stars. The cold would be unthinkable, near absolute zero. Your breath would crystallize before it left your lips. The silence would hum in your bones. It would be terrifying and beautiful. This is where 3I Atlas began under another sun's light. Not ours, but a distant one, perhaps older, perhaps long gone. Somewhere, a star once warmed its surface, casting faint shadows across ridges and valleys that no living thing ever saw. Then, one day, that star's gravity loosened its grip, and 3I Atlas slipped away. Imagine that moment of departure, the last faint glint of its home star, shrinking behind it, like a porch light fading in the rearview mirror. There's something strangely human about that image. Leaving home without meaning to, and realizing too late that you'll never go back. Now, here's where the absurd humor sneaks in, because while you're picturing this majestic interstellar exodus, scientists are sitting in fluorescent lit offices, running simulations on laptops that occasionally freeze because someone forgot to update the drivers. They describe all this in delightfully unromantic language. Ejection event due to gravitational resonance within the protoplanetary disk. Translation: something yeeted this rock into infinity. Still, the poetry remains, hidden in the math. Each ejected object becomes a messenger, not from aliens, but from physics itself. A sample of another world's leftovers, preserved in vacuum, drifting until luck and geometry bring it to someone else's sky. Think of the scale. There are hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy. Even if each one threw out just a handful of these travelers, the Milky Way would be filled with a vast, invisible traffic of wandering stones. 3. I Atlas is simply one that happened to wander close enough for us to notice. For every one we detect, millions more slip by unseen, whispering through the dark. And yet, despite that enormity, the encounter feels personal. There's something oddly intimate about another system's debris brushing past ours, like galaxies shaking hands in the dark. You could call it cosmic cross-pollination stars, trading the seeds of their creation stories. There's also irony, of course. Our species builds rockets to escape the solar system, while nature has been doing it effortlessly for billions of years. Each interstellar object is a self-launched probe. No fuel, no guidance, just momentum and time. And when one happens to pass near Earth, we call it extraordinary, as if the universe hasn't been doing this all along. If you think about it long enough, you start to realize how fragile belonging really is. Planets, moons, asteroids, they all think they're permanent members of their solar families, but deep down, they're just waiting for the next gravitational accident to send them packing. The cosmos is full of orphans that never planned to leave home. So when 3I Atlas appeared, gliding through our system, we weren't just seeing a comet. We were seeing the long echo of another star's creation, a tiny survivor of a chaos so ancient it might as well be myth. And as it passed through sunlight, for the first time in millions of years, it briefly belonged again, not to its old home, not to ours, but to the shared light between them. That's the strange, tender truth of interstellar wanderers. They are the universe's lost children, glowing faintly in borrowed light, carrying with them the quiet proof that every star, even ours, has something worth sending into the dark. We like to think of our solar system as home, but visitors like 3I Atlas remind us how porous home really is. The boundaries of our neighborhood are soft, blurred by time and motion. The universe doesn't draw borders, it just drifts. It's comforting, in a way, to imagine the solar system as a self-contained family. Planets moving in their polite ellipses, moons circling loyally, comets keeping their distance like eccentric uncles who only visit on holidays. But the truth is far less tidy. Out there, everything is leaking, colliding, wandering. The edges of our system aren't a fence, they're a suggestion, a polite hint that says, beyond this, we stop keeping track. 3I Atlas is proof of that. It entered our home without knocking, without even slowing down. It passed through our celestial front yard, admired the decor, and then left before we could offer coffee. And yet, its visit taught us something fundamental about what it means to belong not just in space, but in existence. We draw lines to make sense of chaos. Countries, calendars, constellations, all human attempts to divide the infinite into digestible pieces. The universe, however, doesn't care for our lines. It flows, it drifts, matter trades places, gravity entangles, and time smooths every border we draw. In the grand scheme, everything is both foreign and familiar. When scientists watch something like 3I Atlas, they're not just studying a comet, they're studying the illusion of isolation. The idea that our solar system is somehow separate, that here and out there are distinct. But in truth, the cosmos is one continuous conversation, spoken across billions of years and untranslatable distances. We are part of that dialogue, even when we forget. You could think of 3i Atlas as a reminder that home isn't about geography, it's about connection. And connection, on a cosmic scale, is universal. The atoms that built Earth came from the same furnace that built the stars. Our solar system isn't an island. It's a temporary arrangement of borrowed material, a brief pause in an ongoing drift. It's funny, really, how something so vast can make us feel so intimate. Watching 3i Atlas move through our skies feels almost personal, as if the universe sent us a postcard. Wish you were here. You're part of this too. That's the paradox of astronomy. The farther we look outward, the more we end up looking inward. The deeper we study the cosmos, the more it teaches us about ourselves, our impermanence, our curiosity, our need to understand what we can't hold. Every discovery is, in some quiet way, a mirror. Imagine if the planets could talk about the visitor. Jupiter might have rumbled, another drifter, passing through. Neptune might have barely noticed. But Earth always notices. Because we are the ones watching. We are the consciousness of this solar system, the part that wonders, who was that? Every interstellar traveler reflects that curiosity back to us. And isn't that the most human thing? To see something fleeting and feel compelled to name it, study it, and assign it meaning. To turn an anonymous rock into a story about belonging and motion. 3i Atlas didn't come here for us, but we turned its brief appearance into a meditation on what it means to share space in a vast, uncaring universe. There's humor in that humility. We call it interstellar visitor, as if we're the ones hosting. But really, we're all guests here. Every planet, every moon, every human heart is just another tenant in a system that's been rented for a few billion years. The lease will expire eventually. The sun will swell, the orbits will shift, and everything we know as home will scatter again into stardust. But that's not a sad thought, not really. It's a freeing one, because it means belonging isn't about permanence, it's about participation. We exist in the same cosmic current as 3i Atlas. We're part of the same flow of energy, matter, and curiosity. Whether you're a frozen comet or a warm, caffeinated mammal staring at the night sky, you belong to the same unfolding story. The comet, in its silence, teaches us this better than any philosophy textbook. It doesn't lecture or linger. It just passes through, demonstrating that connection doesn't require conversation. Proximity alone, a brush of gravity, a flash of light, is enough to remind us that isolation is an illusion. So when you look up and imagine that faint traveler out there, disappearing into the dark, know that it's carrying a little piece of you too. Not metaphorically, but literally atoms from our sun, dust from ancient collisions, radiation from our corner of space. The exchange goes both ways. In the end, 3i Atlas teaches us what home really is. Not a fixed place, but a pattern, a rhythm of movement and return, of sharing and letting go. The universe doesn't stay still, and neither do we. We drift, we collide, we learn, we shine for a while, and then we move on. And maybe that's the most cosmic truth of all, that to belong is not to remain, but to keep traveling together through the quiet, borderless sea of stars. By the time scientists coordinated telescopes around the world, 3i Atlas was already fading. Every observation mattered, every second of light captured before it slipped away. Studying it was like trying to read a poem as it dissolves in water. That's the heartbreak of astronomy. Everything interesting is always leaving. The universe doesn't wait for calibration, for weather to clear, or for grant approvals to come through. It just moves on. And 3i Atlas, polite, elusive, and moving at nearly 60 kilometers per second, was no exception. You can imagine the scramble, messages bouncing between observatories. We've got it in Hawaii, confirming in Chile, clouds over Canary Islands, hold position. Astronomers half asleep at keyboards, running on caffeine and hope, watching a speck of light that grows fainter by the minute. There's a strange urgency in that kind of work, not the loud urgency of alarms or deadlines, but the quiet, anxious kind that hums in the background of every fleeting miracle. Each image taken, each pixel of data collected, is a fragment of the story. The comet doesn't pose for portraits. It doesn't circle back for retakes. Every night, it fades just a little more. And as it dims, the researchers adjust longer exposures, higher contrast, more desperate math. Somewhere between patience and panic, science becomes art. Imagine trying to photograph a candle in a storm, from 1,000,000 kilometers away, through air that won't stay still. That's what they faced. 3I Atlas wasn't cooperative. Its tail flickered unpredictably. Its brightness curve danced like a pulse. And yet, in those fluctuations lay meaning: the comet's rotation, its composition, its slow surrender to the sun's warmth. The data collected in those brief nights was irreplaceable. There would be no second chance. The window of visibility was narrowing every hour, like twilight closing in. You can almost picture the astronomers huddled around screens, murmuring encouragement, as though the comet could hear them. Hold still, just a bit longer. And in that act, that quiet persistence, there's something profoundly human. We chase what's disappearing. We study what's already halfway gone. We write down fading light and call it understanding. Because to know something, even briefly, is better than to let it vanish without witness. Somewhere, in the background of this effort, is a poetic absurdity, humanity, spinning on a small rock, pointing expensive glass at the heavens, trying to measure a speck of dust that doesn't even know it's being watched. And yet, that's our glory, to care about things that don't care about us. To look at a fragment of ice from another star and say, "We see you." The fragile window wasn't just scientific, it was emotional. You can feel it in the language astronomers used. Transient, vanishing, marginal. The terms are clinical, but the tone is elegiac. Each line of data is a farewell letter. Each faint spectrum, a whisper. This is what I am, before I go. It's easy to forget how much can go wrong. A cloud passing over a telescope at the wrong moment. A delay in processing. A power outage. The cosmos is generous with wonder, but stingy with timing. 3I Atlas gave us days, not months, and somehow, we made it work. You might say the effort itself mattered more than the result. The shared coordination, a global collaboration of people who will never meet, speaking in wavelengths instead of words, all chasing the same fading point of light. It's one of the few things that unites our species anymore. The quiet awe of something beyond us. And perhaps that's the deeper lesson of the fragile window, that attention is a kind of love. For a few nights, the whole world paid attention to a visitor that would never return. For those nights, humans from every time zone and language focused on a single, silent traveler, trying to preserve its story before darkness took it back. Eventually, the comet grew too faint. The last telescopes lost track. The coordinates still existed, but the light was gone. The scientists knew it was still out there, moving, cooling, drifting away, but it had crossed the threshold of visibility. It had returned to silence. And yet, its presence lingers, in data, in memory, in the faint afterglow of human effort. Because what they captured wasn't just the light of a comet, it was the act of seeing itself, the willingness to notice, even when the window is closing. That's what makes the whole endeavor so beautiful and so fragile. Knowledge, like light, fades if we don't catch it in time. 3. Atlas taught us not just about comets, but about the delicate balance of wonder and loss. It reminds us that everything worth knowing has an expiration date, a moment when it slips beyond reach. But if we're lucky, if we're awake, we get to witness it before it's gone. Inside its dust, there may be molecules that never formed here, alien organics, exotic ices. If we could collect even a speck, we might glimpse the chemistry of another world's beginning. But for now, all we have are spectra colors whispering across the void. It's strange, isn't it? Something so small, so fleeting, and yet capable of carrying an entire solar system's autobiography within it. 3. Atlas isn't just rock and ice, it's the residue of another dawn. The building blocks of an alien homeworld, distilled into a frozen grain and flung across the galaxy. Each molecule inside it could be the clue to a question we've been asking since we learned to look up. Are we unique, or just the latest experiment? When astronomers spread the spectra of its light across their monitors, long bars of color split into thin, delicate lines. They're reading a language older than words. Every line, every shift, tells a story about what that comet is made of. A bit of carbon here, a smudge of oxygen there, maybe even traces of cyanide, methanol, or complex hydrocarbons. All the ingredients that, under the right warmth and patience, could cook into life. It's almost laughable how fragile the evidence is. A few photons traveling for millions of kilometers, caught by a mirror the size of a small house, translated into colors on a screen, then into math, then into meaning. The whole thing feels improbable, and yet, from that improbable chain of light, we glimpse the shadow of another chemistry, another possible story of creation. Imagine, for a moment, if we could catch some of that dust, a single grain of 3 Atlas, preserved in a sterile capsule, sitting on a laboratory table. You could hold it between tweezers, and in your hand would be the material memory of another star, the signature of a world that may have formed and died before ours began. That's the power of interstellar debris. It's the universe's version of family photos, passed between generations of suns. And yet, even without touching it, we can still learn from the echoes. The spectra show subtle differences, ratios of carbon to nitrogen, water to methane that don't quite match anything in our solar system. It's chemistry written in a dialect of light, familiar enough to recognize, but foreign enough to remind us that nature speaks with an accent. There's a quiet humor in this too. We build billion-dollar instruments just to squint at colors slightly bluer than other colors. We write papers about faint dips in spectral curves, as if debating the tone of a cosmic whisper, and all the while, 3i Atlas itself couldn't care less. It shines, it moves, it leaves completely indifferent to the fuss it causes among the tiny primates with telescopes. But that's what makes this pursuit beautiful. We care. We care enough to chase photons, to decipher the light of strangers, to turn cold spectra into stories of warmth and potential. Because somewhere in that spectrum might be the proof that life, or at least its ingredients, are not a cosmic fluke. The idea is simple, but profound. If complex organics can form around another star, then maybe life itself isn't rare. Maybe it's as inevitable as dust. Maybe the galaxy is already full of beginnings, some still happening, some long gone, some frozen and drifting like this one. And when you think about it that way, 3i Atlas isn't just a comet. It's a time capsule from an experiment running parallel to ours. A reminder that the chemistry of life doesn't belong to Earth, it belongs to the universe. We're just one version of the formula, one lucky arrangement of molecules that learn to wonder where they came from. Scientists often joke that interstellar chemistry is like archaeology, with worse lighting. They're not wrong. The artifacts are microscopic, the site's billions of kilometers away, and the dig tools are beams of light. But in that absurdity lies a quiet elegance. We can understand worlds we'll never visit, simply by watching how they glow. Still, it's bittersweet. The comet's fading light carries so much information, but only for a moment. Once it's gone, the spectra vanish too. No more whispers, no more colors. The record closes. And so, astronomers collect those final photons like archivists salvaging pages from a burning library. In those colors, red, green, violet, fading toward black, lie echoes of creation, perhaps even echoes of possibility. Molecules that might have become oceans, or clouds, or cells, somewhere we'll never see. The thought lingers. If another world once looked up at its own sky, did they ever wonder the same way we do now? We'll never know for sure. But maybe that's okay. The mystery is the point. The echo doesn't need to be answered. It just needs to be heard. So we listen through lenses, through equations, through silence. And in that listening, we find reflection. Because when we study 3I Atlas, we're not just hearing the story of another world. We're hearing the faintest, oldest echo of our own. Once it left our skies, the chatter slowed. News sites moved on. But somewhere beyond Neptune, it's still moving. Silent, steady, indifferent. It will outlive our telescopes, our satellites, maybe even our species. Its journey is a reminder that the universe keeps going, whether we're watching or not. The silence that follows discovery is its own kind of music. After the rush of headlines and telescope feeds, there's only quiet, the kind that stretches farther than sound can follow. 3I Atlas is gone now, or at least beyond the reach of attention. The light it once reflected is still racing outward, faint and scattered, while the comet itself drifts on, indifferent to the noise it left behind. It's funny how discovery always feels loud at first. The excitement, the interviews, the poetic tweets from observatories. But space doesn't echo our enthusiasm. Out there, nothing claps or gasps. The universe accepts attention the way the ocean accepts footprints briefly, before washing them away. Imagine 3I Atlas now, a speck of ice beyond Neptune, cold again after its brief brush with sunlight. No tail, no glow, just a fragment of frozen history, tumbling in darkness. The sun is only a bright star in its rearview mirror. Every second takes it farther from us, farther from warmth, farther from the small blue planet that noticed it for a heartbeat. And yet, it doesn't stop. Nothing does. The great conveyor belt of the cosmos rolls on, sweeping comets and stars alike toward their next destinations. In a way, that's the comfort hidden inside the silence, the reassurance that everything keeps moving, even when we don't. For the scientists who tracked it, the end came quietly. The last observations trickled in a dim dot on the edge of detection, and then the data went still. One by one, telescopes turned their gaze elsewhere. The group emails slowed, the simulations were archived, and the universe, as it always does, moved on to its next mystery. But even in that stillness, there's meaning. Because silence doesn't mean absence, it means continuity. 3I Atlas hasn't vanished. It's just gone beyond the range of our instruments, slipping into a part of the map labeled still there. but too far to see. It's humbling, really. We build machines that can detect the afterglow of the Big Bang, yet we still lose sight of a rock after a few astronomical units. The irony is gentle but sharp. The moment we stop watching is the moment the universe gets on with its business. Galaxies merge, stars collapse, comets drift. None of it requires our attention, though we keep offering it anyway. Perhaps that's why we love astronomy. It reminds us that existence doesn't need an audience. Somewhere, a few astronomers are still running models of 3I Atlas's orbit, projecting where it might be in 10 years, 100, 1,000. But those numbers are abstractions, ghostly predictions. The real object is beyond reach, doing what it has always done, wandering. It doesn't know it's been named. It doesn't care that it was briefly famous. It just moves, obeying the laws of motion written before time had punctuation. There's beauty in that indifference. In a world obsessed with permanence, likes, archives, recordings, 3I Atlas offers the opposite: impermanence, perfected. It came, it shone, it left, and it asked for nothing. No return trip, no legacy, just a path through light and silence. If you think about it long enough, it feels like a lesson. The universe doesn't keep score. It doesn't rank its comets by visibility or viral potential. Everything plays its part, then passes on. That's not tragedy, it's rhythm. The same rhythm that turns day into night, seasons into centuries, life into memory. For us, silence feels final. For the cosmos, it's just the baseline hum of existence. Out there, 3I Atlas isn't gone, it's just quieter now. Its molecules are cooling, its motion slowing in perspective, but constant in truth. Maybe, one day, it'll drift into another system, another sun's light, and blaze again for another set of watchers who will name it something else and think they're the first to notice. That's how the universe tells stories, one visitor at a time, one brief flare in an ocean of dark. Each chapter begins with light and ends with silence, and between those two states lies everything worth knowing. So, when you think of 3I Atlas now, don't picture absence, picture motion. Picture a faint, patient traveler still tracing its path between the stars, carrying the quiet memory of the moment we looked up and saw it. Because though we've stopped watching, it hasn't stopped existing, and that's the soft truth astronomy always leaves us with. The show goes on, even when the audience has gone to sleep. Astronomers know this won't be the last. Somewhere out there, another interstellar object is already on its way, invisible for now. Perhaps it carries different chemistry. Perhaps it's artificial, though that's a thought best saved for later in the night. It's funny, the idea that even now, something might be inbound, a quiet speck drifting through the dark, older than civilization, older than our sun, approaching us with the same indifference as all the rest. Maybe it's another rock, maybe a fragment of a shattered planet, or maybe, just maybe, something no one has ever seen before. For now, it hides in the endless backdrop of space, waiting for a telescope to notice its motion, the faintest hint that a visitor is on the road again. Astronomers like to joke that the universe has terrible timing. By the time they find anything worth chasing, it's already waving goodbye. That's why they're building new networks, faster sensors, wider sky surveys, automated trackers that scan every inch of the heavens for faint, fast-moving blurs. Somewhere in those billions of pixels, the next interstellar traveler will appear, and someone will whisper, "There, that one." It's thrilling and absurd all at once. The odds are so small. Catching a visitor crossing our vast celestial highway at exactly the right moment Yet we do it anyway, because curiosity, as science proves repeatedly, is terrible at taking no for an answer. We watch, we wait, we hope for that next streak of light, even knowing it'll probably just pass us by again. Still, hope lingers in the waiting, because each one that passes tells us a little more about the galaxy's story, how worlds form, how matter migrates, how time recycles itself. The next interstellar object could be icy, rocky, metallic, or something entirely new, a mix of materials that don't belong together under any model we know. Every discovery so far has rewritten a small corner of the textbook. 3I Atlas, in its quiet way, reminded us how little we truly know about what floats between the stars. And yes, there's that whisper in the scientific community, the one you only hear after midnight, when the coffee's gone cold and the data starts to look like poetry. What if one isn't natural? What if, someday, the next visitor doesn't tumble like a comet or behave like a rock, but moves differently, too precise, too intentional? The thought lingers, half a joke, half a dare, because the universe, with its talent for mischief, loves to give us puzzles wrapped in light years. It's not that anyone expects alien spacecraft. It's just that when you've spent your life studying randomness, anything too tidy feels suspicious. Oumuamua, the first interstellar visitor, already danced with that suspicion. Its odd shape, its strange acceleration, its refusal to fit comfortably into our models. Scientists tried to explain it with physics, while others reached for science fiction. Both, in their own ways, were right. The truth is stranger than either. And so, they keep their minds open not for little green pilots, but for possibilities. Maybe one day, we'll find something with a structure too clean, a composition too uniform, a trajectory too deliberate. Maybe one day we'll find the galaxy's version of litter, a piece of technology long dead, drifting between stars. Or maybe we'll just find another rock that makes us question the definition of ordinary. Either way, it'll be worth the wait. Waiting, after all, is what astronomy is best at. It's a profession of patience, watching the slow machinery of the cosmos turn, sometimes for decades, to catch a single flicker of change. The next interstellar object could arrive next year, or 10,000 years from now. Someone will be watching when it does. Someone always is. Until then, we fill the gap with imagination sketches of possible shapes, simulations of orbital paths, bets on what it might be. Somewhere in all those thought experiments is the same quiet longing, not just to see it, but to understand it, because every visitor is also a reflection, a piece of the universe holding up a mirror to its own complexity. And maybe that's the secret thrill of waiting, not the discovery itself, but the idea that the universe is still capable of surprise. We've mapped continents, oceans, and planets. We've photographed black holes and listened to the echoes of the Big Bang. Yet here we are, still squinting into the dark, hoping to catch sight of something utterly unknown. So, as the telescopes keep humming and the algorithms keep scanning, somewhere beyond the edge of sight, the next traveler drifts closer. It doesn't know it's being awaited. It doesn't know it's about to change how we see ourselves again. It's just moving, slow and silent, toward a system where small creatures look up at night and wonder if they're alone. And when it finally arrives, when another streak of light cuts across the data, the world will pause again, briefly united in curiosity, staring upward, whispering the same word across time and language. Look, space is not empty. It's a highway of travelers we've only just begun to notice. 3I Atlas was just one among billions, passing quietly through the light of our star before vanishing back into the dark. And somewhere, far beyond our reach, it keeps moving a small, glowing question, with no need for an answer. You might picture the cosmos as still and silent, but it isn't. It's in constant motion, a grand, slow parade of matter flowing between stars. Comets, asteroids, dust grains, rogue planets all drifting endlessly, weaving between suns like travelers on an unmarked road. If you could stand still long enough, really still, for millions of years you'd see it. An endless migration of objects, like a galactic tide that never stops. 3. Atlas was just one of those countless drifters, a single spark in the traffic of eternity. Astronomers used to think interstellar space was mostly empty, a vacuum too vast for movement. But they were wrong. The galaxy is messy, busy, full of wanderers that never quite belong anywhere. Some are flung away from their home systems by gravity, others torn loose by collisions or dying stars. Together, they form an invisible stream that flows through everything, even here, through the quiet suburbs of our solar system. It's humbling to imagine. Our sun isn't a stationary beacon, but a car on that same highway, cruising around the Milky Way with all its passengers, planets, moons, comets, and the occasional hitchhiker like 3i Atlas. Space isn't a stage, it's a river, and we're floating in it, whether we notice or not. Every now and then, two travelers pass close enough to glimpse each other, a comet and a solar system, a planet and a rogue moon, a dust grain and a beam of light. For an instant, their paths cross, their histories intersect, and then they part forever. That's what happened with 3i Atlas. It wasn't an event, it was an encounter, a brief crossing of trajectories, in an infinite grid of motion. If you zoom out far enough beyond stars, beyond galaxies, the scale becomes dizzying. The Milky Way itself is moving through space, colliding slowly with Andromeda, both galaxies full of their own comets and travelers. Every motion nested inside a larger motion. Every orbit a thread in the galaxy's tapestry. Somewhere out there, 3i Atlas glides through that fabric like a loose stitch, unbothered by where it came from or where it's going. There's a strange peace in that thought. Humans love destinations. We measure journeys by beginnings and endings, departures and arrivals. But the universe doesn't. Out there, there is no arrival, only continuation. Motion without motive, purpose without plan. Everything just is, moving in accordance with the quiet laws of gravity and chance. And maybe that's why we find travelers like 3i Atlas so compelling. They embody something we secretly long for, freedom from destination. No orbit to return to, no sun to circle endlessly. Just movement, eternal and unanchored. A life without repetition. A path without a map. If you were to follow it now, you'd find it drifting between stars. The faint sunlight of our system long gone, replaced by the dim, collective glow of the Milky Way. It passes dust fields and interstellar clouds, maybe even the edge of another system's influence. One day, tens of thousands of years from now, it might fall toward another star and flash again for another brief moment, a flicker of light for a world that hasn't evolved yet to see it. That's the rhythm of the highway. Endless, quiet, cyclical. Every object moves through the same space eventually. Some collide, some merge, some just brush by. From a galactic perspective, it's all one continuous movement matter, rearranging itself, forever in transit. You could say that we, too, are travelers. Our atoms were once dust, once sunlight, once part of other worlds. They've been here before, and they'll be here again. rearranged into new shapes, new minds, new comets. The line between the living and the cosmic isn't as solid as we pretend. 3i Atlas just reminds us of that our story is written in motion, not permanence. So when we call it the infinite highway, we're not exaggerating. We're describing the truest thing about existence, that everything is always on its way to somewhere else. Every particle, every photon, every life. Some travel fast, some slow, but all move together through the same endless current. And if you listen closely enough, not with your ears, but with that quiet part of you that feels wonder before sleep, you might sense it, the faint hum of everything, moving, softly, endlessly, beneath the silence. 3i Atlas is out there, another traveler on the road, still carrying its unanswered question through the dark. And maybe, just maybe, that's what the universe has been doing all along.